Conservation Commission meeting, February 2nd, 2021 at 6 p.m. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Section 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people who may gather in one place. The meeting of the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will be conducted via participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen and or watch the meeting may do so either online via the town's on-demand video broadcast on cable television on channel 191 or dial into the meeting at 774-304-1455 and enter 1428 pound for the meeting number and 12345 for the access code. This phone number is only active during the public meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the meeting in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay. Hi, Eric. Eric? Eric? You still can't hear. Opening statement for public hearings. In the interest of saving time, Sturbridge Conservation Commission will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland, water body, or resource area and or within the 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland, water body, or resource area in accordance with Mass Wetland Protection Act, MGL, Chapter 131, Section 40, and associated regulations, and the Town of Sturbridge wetland bylaws and associated regulations. We will not be reading the newspaper ad. Prior to the opening, the first hearing for each project, the applicant is to submit proof of notification to abutters within 200 feet of the subject property line and proof of legal newspaper advertisement. If these items are not submitted, the public hearing will not open. Additionally, prior to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project and to the applicant and the applicant's representative. All right, that said, we are at 6:05. Becky, you ready for the first hearing? Eric, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Great. All right.
Sorry about that.
Before we go into that, we just make sure that we have a quorum. David Barnacle.
David Barnacle, present.
Steve Haldeman.
Steve Haldeman, present.
Steve Chidester.
Stephen Chidester, present.
Eric Gaspar.
Eric Gaspar, present.
And Ed Goodwin, present. All right. We're at our first public hearing for 423 Main Street, notice of intent, parking lot improvements, DEP file number to 300. Becky, do we have a file number on that?
No, DEP has not issued a file number or comments yet.
Okay. All righty. So, Representative D. Sheehan, Graves Engineering.
Hi, this is actually Mike Andres for Graves Engineering tonight. How are you?
Good. Hi, Mike.
Good.
How you doing?
Should I just jump right in, or?
Yeah, go ahead. Jump right in.
Okay.
Becky, that's all right with you, right?
We want to do a screen share, or?
Yep. Yep.
So I have a kind of colored copy of the plan I can put up if you want. I can put up some additional plans, or we can give you the ability to share your screen too.
Yeah, I prefer to just share it if we could.
Okay. Jeff, are you there? Can you allow him the ability to share screen, please?
Yep.
Okay, great. Everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Again, my name is Mike Andrade with Graves Engineering, here on behalf of the applicant and owner of the property, NEM Realty. They are in the process of rehabilitating the site. I know some of the members were there last week for the site walk and saw all the work that has gone on in the building, which they've converted to 5 residential units. And second part of the project is to rehab the site by taking the existing gravel parking lot and driveway that are on the driveway on the side of the building and parking lot in the back, and paving those, creating some drainage, cleaning up the site for the residential use. The site is entirely within jurisdictional areas. If you can see here, there's a wetland that was flagged at the bottom corner of the site here. This is the property line off the bottom corner of the site, and the river, perennial river behind the site as well. So the buffer zones for that encompass the entire site all the way out into Main Street. We're here asking for redevelopment of previously disturbed riverfront area. This whole area behind the building to the tree line here has historically been used as a gravel parking area. The work that we're proposing, I'll flip to the next page. Yeah, again, it's pave all that, create organized parking, the dumpster pad here, curb portions of the parking lot such that runoff is directed towards a filter strip, a sediment forebay, and then a rain garden here in the corner. Snow storage area on the side of the property here in the grassed area. And all the work is within the existing developed area, or degraded riverfront area. And we're proposing to restore an area of riverfront back to natural conditions here on the order of about 210 square feet. We'll be planting that with the conservation mix and some mountain laurel shrubs. As a result of a comment at the site walk from Concom, we will be adding a wood post and rail fence here too to discourage pushing of snow in that direction, which if you've been to the site, you know is the top of a steep slope down to the river. We want all the snow to go in this area here. So we're paving the site for parking. We're providing stormwater management in full compliance with the stormwater handbook. I did see the staff recommendations. I don't have any issue with those. I did just check about 10 minutes ago, and there's still no file number from DP. We've been trying to resolve that in hopes to get that for tonight. It didn't happen. So I understand we may need to continue to the next meeting to resolve that, but I can certainly answer any questions anyone may have about the project.
Becky, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I think you did a good job summarizing the project. As you said, we're looking at a buffer zone project and redevelopment of a riverfront area. I've gone through the application. I don't have any concerns with his submittal. All of the alternative analysis included. He's got the stormwater report with checklists and an O&M plan for maintenance activities for the rain garden. Some of the recommendations that I had, when appropriate, I do think that the commission could be in a position to approve this project with some conditions. With that said, he did mention the addition of the fence to deter pushing snow over the bank. It's just one recommendation, I guess, is maybe that could go in the front of the rain garden as well, so it's not directly pushed into the rain garden, just make that modification over there. That can be added as a condition for the permit. That was it. The only other thing that I'd add is that hold off, on the issuance of a certificate of compliance for at least one growing season, since it is a rain garden, and we do have some restoration plantings in that area. And then the other recommendation would just be what we talked about on site was that the materials that have been pushed to the top of the bank right now, that those as soon as possible, it's not really possible at this time, those get pulled back as soon as possible, so that way they don't migrate down the bank into the riverfront area. And that was all.
All right.
So actually, the next meeting would be March 2nd that we have, so you'd have to continue it to that meeting.
Any comments from any other board members regarding things that
I have
could
one
improve the
comment.
project? Go ahead, David.
My one comment is, Mike, in your planting plan, did you really mean to include thistle?
I don't see what we proposed thistle unless it's in the conservation seed mix.
Okay, maybe I have my groups mixed up. One of the planting plans that I read over the weekend clearly said thistle. It's going along with
The ground cover, we proposed the conservation and
David,
wildlife.
maybe you need to turn that low overhead light down a little bit. I think he's cooking you up.
We're just planting mountain laurel, no thistle.
All right. Hearing no comments. Mike, you're willing for a continuation to the second? All right. All in favor? Steve Haldeman?
Oh, actually, I do want to do public
comment.
Go ahead. All right. All right. Yep. Jeff, could we see if there's anybody in the public who would like to speak to this?
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 423 Main Street application? Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 423 Main Street application? There's no one wishing to speak to that application.
Thank you. All right. I'm looking for approval for a continuation to March 2nd because of the file number, lacking the file number. Steve Haldeman?
I approve. Steve Haldeman.
Eric?
I'm in favor of the continuation.
David?
Monica in favor.
Stephen?
Stephen Chittis, favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Okay, Becky? All right. Mike, thanks, Mike.
Good night.
Jeff, can you give
All
me the
right.
ability to share my screen, please?
Yep.
Beg your pardon?
Oh, thank you.
We're at 615, 231, 233, and 235 Cedar Street. An ANRAD, abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, file number 300, and we don't have a file number for this either. Becky?
So we actually do have one. DEP issued that yesterday at 5:35. So it's 300-1090.
All right. Good. All right. Is Lenny here or Mike?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Done? Yep. Very well.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for Lenny. He's my guy.
Yeah. Okay. He's usually on time. Becky, do you have anything we can work on in the meantime? Any signatures or anything?
About the minutes.
Yeah, we can do the minutes.
Do the minutes. Okay. Why don't you go to the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as written. David Barnacle.
Do I have a second?
Steve Haldeman, I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any discussion? All right. All in favor, David?
Steve Barnacle in favor.
Okay. Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Steve Haldeman?
Steve Halterman in favor.
Eric Gaspar,
Eric Gaspar in favor.
and Ed Goodwin in favor. All right. Anything else? I don't see Lenny showing up. Lenny, you out there?
Yes, I am. I'm ready for the meeting.
All right, great. No, you're not late. You're late for the meeting, Lenny.
Okay.
All right, Lenny, we've announced the project. We'd like to hear from you.
You want me to tell you what it is?
Go ahead.
It's,
Yep.
Okay, the project actually is for a request for determination for the wetland delineation. It's for lots 231, 233, and 235 on Cedar Street, and it's owned by a Michael and Gail Young, which are located at 237 Cedar Street. The project itself actually was laid out in 1987, which gives you the lots which are 5, 6, and 7, which are shown. In 1988, there was a plan revised for the property that gave an additional area of about 15,000 square feet for lots 5A, 6A, and 7A. The three lots themselves were owned by Howlett Lumber Company, which was developed in 1987, of which they built 4 houses on lot 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And Mr. Young bought lots 8, and then in the interim bought 5, 6, and 7. What he would like to do is to now take his investment and turn it over and sell it to single-family housing on lot 5, 6, and 7. In the process of doing this, we had Ecotech Environmental do a wetland delineation of the project, and Chalbin Engineering did the surveying to delineate the wetland delineation along with the buffers for lots 5, 6, and 7. In the process of doing that, it came about that lots number 5 actually had a cart path which was installed on lot 5 to access the rear of the property, the westerly portion of the property, which is existing presently. And then lot number 6 was left vacant. There was no access road placed on that particular piece. Lot number 7 was actually installed with an access road, and along with it, a well was installed in the proximity of the front of the lot near Cedar Street, and then a percolation test was conducted and passed on the property, which is on the westerly portion of the property. So there's been work done on lot 7, which the well and septic
is lot 7 231, Lenny?
235.
235. Okay.
Okay, and if you're going up Cedar Street, on your left-hand side, the first lot was lot 1 or 5, which was an access road that went on that property. Was basically on the southerly side of that lot. Lot 6 actually was vacant, and no access road was put in there, and then right off of it, there's flagging on there. There was a catch basin and discharge drain from Cedar Street dumping into the most southeasterly corner of lot number 7, which drains into the area of the wetland area in the property. Lot number 7, there was a well put in, which is, basically, I'd say 100 and something feet off of Cedar Street along that access road, and then behind it, there were 4 test holes done there for that septic system. The lots themselves are On the westerly side are bordered by a wetland area, which is actually a wetland buffer relative to a stream, which is in the back. The stream itself is, more than 400 feet off of wetland lot number 7, and it doesn't encompass any of the riparian zones within the lots 5, 6, and 7. The areas that you people were supposed to look at, basically on lot 7, is split in two, mainly because of the driveway or cart path that was installed on the property, which was basically the wetland area. And then from there, going in a southerly direction, almost to the boundary line of lot number 5, is a cart road, and that area there is the main buffer zone, wetland zone. Any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
All right. Staff recommendations, Becky?
Yeah, so I did some research on this property to try to figure out when, some work could have been ever permitted back here. I was able to locate 2 older superseding orders of conditions from DEP. However, I don't have supporting documentation or all of the plans, et cetera, that went along with that. So it's not easy to follow what was approved. But that goes back to the late 80s, where the previous property owner, it looks like, had filed with the commission. There was an appeal and a superseding order. So at that time, it appears that DEP determined that the front wetland was a bordering vegetated wetland at that time, and there was an existing cart path then. It's not clear to me what exactly might have been approved by DEP, and I think that supporting information and documentation is important for the commission to review to determine if there was any previous permits that might have been in place, and if they were properly executed. I do have one copy of a superseding order, and there was required wetland restoration. I did try to do a little research to see if the permits were recorded in the deeds. I couldn't locate anything. So I think for this, based off of what I was able to find, the front wetland was determined to be a bordering vegetated wetland, not an isolated wetland at that time. And like I said, I think that a little more information is needed to look at that. We did do a site visit out there last week. We did see, the cart path, we found the well, and it did look like, on lot 5, there was some recent cutting happening out there. So I'd recommend that, no further, the commission, states that there's no further work that occurs out here, as there's no current permits issued for any work out there. So I think that's important. I do think that some additional information is going to be needed. I do think that it would be advisable to at a point in time, have a peer review done. But my recommendation would be that at this time that the property owner and his representative look to gather that information about the plans. It looks like Lenny Galbraith Engineering was the engineer who worked on the project back then. If you have that information that you can present to show, I think it's important that you need to document to the commission that there was approvals, what the approvals were, and what work was conducted to determine what's jurisdictional here. I think that would be my first recommendation is to come back to the commission with that information so that they can review that in advance of our next meeting. So the next meeting would be March 2nd. And after that, we do have a 7-day, policy of submitting documents in advance, that we have those at that time. And then we can take a look at that and be able to determine if, whoever the property owner was at that time, what they got approval for, did they properly execute it, and what we have going on here. If these, cart paths were not installed with permitting, then it would be still within a resource area, and we need to figure out how to move forward with that. So that would be my recommendation at the time. Once we get a better handle on the permitting history for any work out there, then we can move forward with the determination. One additional note from DEP, And I think that's something that we can work out afterwards. Is that I know in the narrative with the ANRAD, it did say that you are requesting approval for the bordering vegetated wetland, which is on the rear of the property and right off site of here. But it didn't indicate on the ANRAD that you were requesting for an isolated vegetated wetland. It was in the narrative, it just wasn't included on there. But as I stated before, I think that DEP did determine that this was a bordering vegetated wetland. And, you know, based off of that information, I think that that's what we'd have to move forward with as well.
All right. Lenny, I got a couple questions for you. Ed,
before we do that, I'd like to at least clarify a couple points here. Number one is the property was done basically in 1987 and in 1988, which is the work took place, and you know, and whether or not an order was issued and not recorded or anything else after 37 years, I consider it's kind of moot. You know, what we were doing here is we actually was presenting this program to the conservation for the fact that we wanted the delineation for the bordering wetland and the property itself to be more or less acknowledged by the board. And then from that, what we would be doing in the future here is that lots 5, 6, and 7, in the event they were sold, at least we'd know the parameters we've got to work from, and then at that time we would have to issue to you a formal notice of intent for 5, 6, and 7, whichever it's going to be built upon. And you know, I feel that no, this is the main question. You know, not whether a permit was issued in 1987 or not. I know Jalbert Engineering did the work, but I don't know after 35 years or so if it's still available. You know, so but I'll be happy to look at it.
Yeah, Lenny, did you recently survey and put the flags up, or are those old flags?
No. They were brand new, which were done by Ecotech. It was done, you know, basically at the end of December and then part of, you know, January. So the plan was actually issued January 5th.
Okay. Any comments from board members? Because I think we're going to have to continue this.
He was making comments.
I beg your pardon?
Becky was making comments.
Becky, back to you then. Becky, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So I just wanted to reply to Lenny's comments. I do think it's important because you're asking them to determine what this wetland is. And that still, if it's still that was approved or not approved, is important in determining the status of the wetland, whether it's an isolated or bordering. In addition, you know, one of DEP's comments was that the applicant should provide documentation to support the statement that the cart path bill is presumed to be predate applicable wetland regulations, as it was noted in the application. So with that said, also, if approval was given in one of the conditions in the superseding, in one of the allowances for having impacts to a bordering vegetated wetland, is you can get, you know, not that you just get it, but you can get up to 5,000 square feet. So if there's allowances on these properties for work that has occurred on the entirety of the property that's already been consumed by that square footage, then there might not be the ability to further impact as well. So I think that's important to determine, because it looks like it's lots 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 that are currently owned. And it looks like previously the superseding orders were for lots 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. So I think that information is necessary for them to determine the status of that wetland too.
So what are you asking for? Research from lots 1 through 7 inclusive, if that's what you're telling me?
Well, I think that it's lots 5 through 9 or 5 that are currently owned.
Okay.
I think the other lots didn't have direct wetland impacts. I did find the notice of intent for lot 4, which was a buffer zone project. So I think it's, you know, if these properties, if they didn't have any, you know, impacts on those other lots, which it doesn't look like there was, they couldn't find any other notice of intent except for lot 4, which was a buffer zone project, then there was no other threshold. So if they've started to eat away at the thresholds on these lots, the commission might not be in a position to be able to approve additional impact is what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Based off of the wetland regs.
Okay, well, well, obviously we have to, in order to come up with something with credibility, we'd have to do lots 1 through 7 inclusive of 9. So, because it's under, you know, the Wetlands Protection Act, it's, at one time it was all one piece of property when it was subdivided in 87.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So we will check
Yep.
it.
As far as Lot 9 goes, that's absolutely a skunk cabbage swamp to the north of my house. I think it's roughly 4.6 acres, and it abuts the old Sturbridge Town dump that I can remember going to with my parents when I was in elementary school, back in the days when they used to shoot rats at the dump. So that's certainly not a buildable lot, but it's, you know, clearly separated from the 5, 6, and 7 that are between me and my nearest neighbor, and those are the lots that are really in question as to whether we can find a way to put a house and a septic system on them, or one of them, or combine 2 of them, whatever is necessary to make them saleable and make the purchaser feel comfortable, or if they were sold to a builder, the builder feel comfortable.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
I'm just curious what work is currently being done out there, because there was a bunch of clearing that seemed to be going on lot 5, 231.
The old cart path that I saw you guys walking in on lot 5 the other day, I cleared the brush off of that so it would be easier to walk in there. That's, you know, there was sapling growth, you know what I mean? So I cleared that with my chainsaw so you'd be able to walk in there. And then I always, I've owned those lots now for I think for 25 years. Every so many years I go in with the chainsaw and just clear the lot line so I have visibility from based on where the pins are and everything else, that's all.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, could we see if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak? Jeff?
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 231, 233, and 235 Cedar Street application? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 231, 233, and 235 Cedar Street application? There's no one to speak, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. All right. What I'd like to do is have a continuation for Lenny, give Lenny a chance to take a look and see if he has any further documentation, because I remember I was on the board when this transpired. I hate to tell you.
Of course you were.
and you know, I don't have any memory that I don't have any memory other than I know I was on the board, and Lenny had a lot more hair then. But if you could check, Lenny, and I know you were the engineer last time.
Right.
If you could pull up those and see what you have on file.
I will do that.
And if we get a good day, I think we'd like to, you know, walk the delineation. I don't know about the rest of the board, but I would like to, just to, because it looked like there was some, well, no, it doesn't. Actually, as I look at the blue outline, it looks pretty much like what I thought it was. I'm just a little bit confused as to where the house lots would go, where the houses would go. So.
Okay.
a site visit would be good.
Okay,
For
we'd
that.
be happy
Anybody-
to walk it with.
Yeah. Anybody, any other comments? All in favor of a continuation? Mike, are you all right with a continuation?
Yeah, I will just pursue the process and make sure
Right.
all the i's are dotted and the t's crossed.
All right, Steve, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, just to make sure, when we were out there looking at what you had done with your chainsaw, those were violations of Wetlands Protection Act, just so you know. So it might have gone unnoticed, but Becky said that she recommended this commission issue a cease and desist, that the work would be in violation unless, and this is, again, why it's important that we know what was permitted. If that was not permitted, and the only way to find that out is to do the research that Becky recommended to Lenny. You're in violation of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Sturbridge bylaws. Just so you know, don't go out there with your chainsaw.
Oh, that's fine.
All right, all in favor of a continuation to March 2nd? Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Dave Barnacle?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chedester?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Steve Halderman?
Steve Halterman in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. All right, thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening, all of you.
Yep, take care.
you.
Yeah. Careful driving home. All right, we are now to Hamilton. 24 Hamilton Road, notice of intent, dam maintenance and tree removal, DEP file number 300-1087. Dan Karnicki, and who else have we got? C. McClure. Anybody else here from the Rod and Gun Club? Chris, who else is there? You and Dan?
Just me and myself and Dan, yes.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, great. Becky, you want to speak first on this, or?
I can let them give a quick introduction
All
summary
right.
of the project.
Dan or Chris?
Thank you.
One of you want to? Yeah.
Great.
Go to it.
Good evening. Chris McClure Engineering. I'm here on behalf of the Hamilton Rod and Gun Club. Middle of this notice of intent for the proposed tree and woody brush removal along the 3 dams that the Hamilton Rod and Gun Club currently own. They are responsible for the maintenance of the 3 dams, and they are regulated by the Office of Dam Safety, which undergo a phase 1 inspection evaluation, and the frequency is determined by the dam asset potential. So the most recent phase 1 determined it's necessary to remove some trees and brush from the 3 dams in order to comply with the Office of Dam Safety policy on trees. And we're here to show the commission the areas that we'd like to address and hopefully get approval to perform that work. 2 of the dams are within the Heritage and Endangered Species Program areas, and we have had correspondence with those folks. There are some limitations they impose on this work, as well as whatever the commission might require us to do as part of this maintenance program.
All right. Becky, you got any pictures you can put up?
I think there was pictures in the notice of intent. I didn't take any pictures, but do you have colored site plans that I can put up that we can look at?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
I'll come back to this.
Yeah, they look pretty pretty clean.
If we could
Yeah, so there's...
I'm sorry, Becky, could we go to the first one, we call it the Hamilton Rod and Gun Club Dam? Yes, great. Excellent. So this would be the first dam, and this is along the road at Hamilton Road there. Embankment is primarily clean cleared of trees and woody brush. There are 4 trees in that purple area that would need to be removed. It's very limited in this, along this water body.
All right, next one.
The next one would be the right-hand dam, which we call the Fish Pond Overflow. And the areas of concern are the areas surrounding the spillway, and there's a wall as part of the embankment structure, and I guess we'd call it the westerly portion of that water body that needs clearing along the embankment of this structure.
Okay, and then the next one.
Yes, the Fish Pond Dam. Primarily, the areas of concern are the areas of the outlets, maintaining access in case of emergency. These areas would be cleared of the larger trees and any tree in the woody vegetation that exists. Primarily, it's like 20 feet from the lower the embankment that we're looking at. We tried to minimize the impact as much as we could, but again, as part of the dam safety program, the applicant needs to perform this maintenance.
All right. Becky, any comments other than the ones we have in our notes? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Chris went over the project well. Just kind of reiterate though, work is proposed within riverfront area and buffer zone to bank, land underwater, and a bordering vegetative wetland. So DEP has provided a file number and comments. As you said, it's within priority habitat for state listed species. We do have a comment letter from Natural Heritage, which I shared with you, and they do have conditions to incorporate within our permit. So I'd recommend, obviously, that we incorporate those. Just to add in too, for work within riverfront area, there was an alternative analysis included, as well as for the work within our 25-foot no-touch area. The project is required by the Office of Dam Safety, and they don't have any alternatives to not removing the woody vegetation. So it is something that is required and that they need to do. I'd recommend some additional information which we can have them give us. It's something that we talked about in the site visit, and it was just what the O&M activities would be required by Office of Dam Safety for maintenance of those areas. And it sounds like it's just kind of using hand equipment, hand tools to keep the vegetation, the woody vegetation down. So I just ask that. I think that's necessary that we just get a narrative from them that kind of discloses what the activities would be, and that we can include that as a perpetual condition with the permit. In addition, we had talked about on the site was looking at the work areas afterwards to see if, we don't anticipate work will be done in frozen conditions. Therefore, we don't really anticipate a lot of ground disturbance, but we did have some steep slopes in some areas. So I'd recommend a review by staff. I can do it to go out and look at the work areas after they're done, see if any seeding or erosion sedimentation controls are necessary. And then with the incorporation of those comments and Natural Heritage's conditions, I would recommend approval for the project as it's required by the Office of Dam Safety, and the project team has demonstrated there's no viable alternatives. And that's about it.
All right. Comments from board members? Eric, anything?
Well, the other thing I asked on site, and I think it's was agreed to, is that everything's going to be burned on site, right? Not just left. The debris, the splashes, is just going to be left in the wetland.
Correct. Our plan would be to build a bird pile and then burn it during the burn time in Sturbridge. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I had.
Steve, anything?
No, I'm all set. Nice job, guys.
Okay. David?
Did you guys, this is David Barnacle, did you have a replanting plan?
No, there was no replanting plan. None. This is removal of, growth on the dams, basically. And
what my concern is that if we don't put down some sort of preventative EnviroCloth or something like that, what you're doing is cutting everything above ground. The root structure remains the same. So any of them, for example, that are either oak or maple are simply going to send more shoots up. How is that going to be taken care of, Chris?
That's going to be taken care of in that in the narrative for the O&M. There's going to need to be a routine maintenance for the applicant to ensure. Ideally, what ODS likes to see is grass, just as you would see at their on their dam along Hamilton Road. But it will have to go out there with weed whacker and ensure that those shoots don't grow up into what we call woody vegetation.
Stephen, anything?
Yeah, the comment that I made on site about if they're leaving the stumps anyway, is there any way that we can leave some, taller tree trunks as habitat for particularly some of these larger trees? I don't know if the rest of the commission agrees with that, but I'm just thinking of, trying to leave some habitat in place.
Chris, any comment on that?
It hasn't been done in my experience in the past. I could certainly take a look at their policy there if they would like to. So ideally, what they want is those stumps. They want the tree removed and then those stumps removed as well, because those stumps are going to rot and create voids in that embankment in the future. So the plan is to get the trees down and then start looking at potentially coming back to you folks and within a time frame that's suitable for the applicant in order to do this work and garner the funds for it, and then ideally remove the stumps from those areas as well. So I can't really agree to that based upon the policy of the ODS.
Okay. Yeah.
So I guess, Steve, go ahead, Steve.
It was unclear to me whether they were removing the stumps or not. So I thought if they were leaving the stumps, why not leave some larger tree trunks?
Well, I think this is the first we've heard of them removing stumps in any way, shape, or form.
That is correct. We did not talk. We thought that the stumps were going to be left when we were at the site visit. So you're right. That's news.
The stump removal is not going to be a component of this portion of work. This work is going to take the applicant some time to address, and at that point in time, we can get a better visual on the potential impacts, and the Office of Dam Safety can get a better visual on it. Those existing stumps do play.
Okay. Eric, anything?
No, nothing more.
Anybody else? Do I have a motion? Oh, wait a minute. Before I do that, Jeff, could we check to see if there's anybody in the audience? Please.
Good evening. Is there anyone to speak to the Conservation Commission on the 24 Hamilton Road application? Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the Conservation Commission on the 24 Hamilton Road application? There are no comments on that application.
Thanks, Jeff. That being said, do I have a motion?
Motion to close the public hearing. David Barnacle.
That's from David. And a second from... Second. Any discussion on closing the public hearing? All in favor? Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Steve?
Steve Halterman in favor.
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle?
David Barnacle in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Okay. Do I have a motion on the project?
Steve Halterman, I move that we accept the NOI and with the conditions that Becky has outlined.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have any discussion? Hearing none. Eric, how do you vote?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Steve Haldeman.
Steve Halterman in favor.
Stephen Chidester.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle.
David Barnacle in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Have a good night.
Night. Becky, we're at 150 Charlton Road. We have an ANRAD review resource area, DEP file number 300-1088. All right. Jeremy, are you here?
I am. This is Jeremy.
How you doing?
Jeremy's girlfriend. How are you?
Yeah. Good.
I think Glenn Krabowski's here too.
Yes.
Glenn, how you doing?
Good. Everything's good. Yourself? Good New Year.
Good New Year, yeah. One of you gentlemen would like to present what you're looking for here on this INRAD?
Be my pleasure. Thank you. Mr. Baum was on the line too. I see Andrew Baum. He is involved also with the creation of the ANRAD plan. We also have filed a request for a certificate of compliance from previous work from '05 that involved the gas station across the street and some hydrocarbons that came to the side of the road. That's in front of you apparently at your next meeting. We appreciate that. The cat stream had been called intermittent in the past. It is now showing up on a USGS map as intermittent directly across the street and perennial on this side of the road. And for that reason, we went out there over the weekend and delineated the bank of the brook, both sides of the bank on the lower portion of the brook system, and one side of the bank on the portion of the brook system closest to Charlton Road, as the client does not own, Cobra Realty Trust owns the property now, Dan Prouty. The client does not own any property on the west side of the brook, on the upper portion. So we imagine that the commission will have an inspection at some point, potentially hire a peer reviewer. Mr. Baum, who I talked to today and yesterday over this, will have his surveyors pick up the mean annual high water flags and put them on the plan so that we see where the 200-foot lies, although we've extrapolated it in our own office to see that point. But I think with the other hoop to go through is also that certificate of compliance, which isn't directly in front of you at this very moment, but it is in your office, and I think there will most likely both be looked at to ensure we first comply with the old order, or Cobra Realty does, and then move at the same time with this delineation of BVW, isolated vegetated wetland, and mean annual high water. I did send an email yesterday stating that we would be asking for a continuance to get that MAHW in front of you, and I believe that's my discussion at this point. One last thing, there is one more point. We are going back into the old file, that 05 file. We thank you for Erin, your clerk. Apparently we'll be able to look at that file tomorrow. Thank you. The 05 file.
All right. Becky, any comments other than the staff notes here and recommendations?
Yeah, I just want to, so I just want to add, right after the notes were put together, Mr. Kowalski did contact our office. We did receive a request for a certificate of compliance, which was one of my recommendations, that we needed to get that older permit closed out on the property. So we did receive that today, and we'll start going through that file and the information submitted. That will be on the next meeting agenda. Mr. Kowalski did talk about the perennial streams. That was one of my comments, and also DEP's comments. So I'm happy to see that you are working to address that, and we'll be getting a revised plan. With that, just make sure that you revise the ANRAD application to include the new resource area delineations that you're asking for.
Of course.
My recommendation to the commission will be that we do have a peer review done on this site to review all of the resource areas once they're flagged and once we get the revised plan. So I think it would be useful to vote to request that additional information, but I would like to wait to submit requests for proposals until we have that full plan with all the resource areas on there to make sure that I'm getting the most accurate plan out to persons for proposals. One other comment is this property does extend to the west where there is a cell tower. It's not actually up on this portion of the plan that I have on here, but there does appear to be additional resource areas in that portion of the property. It might not be of concern for the applicant at this time, but if they are not requesting us to approve resource areas on that portion of the property, that should be clearly noted on the plan that that area is to be excluded from this determination. So that should be added to the plan or revised to include resource areas.
Through the chairman.
And that's all.
Through the chairman, we did delineate below this property, so we would capture the 100-foot buffer zone of that cell tower.
All right.
We'll review that one more time, but we'll that's already on the plan. I actually worked on that original delineation for the cell tower. Thank you.
Any input from the committee? Starting with Stephen. Any comments?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Becky recommends. I don't have any comments.
David?
This is David Barnacle. I would like to clearly indicate that while all of this investigation is going on the cell tower side of Route 20, that they make sure that they continue looking for petroleum byproducts, because part of the reason that all of this work was done at Intermittent Stream 20 years ago or 15 years ago is because there was a leak that took place on the opposite side of the road. It migrated under Route 20, and there was serious dredging and cleaning that had to take place over the course of several years in that exact area. And I'm sure that Glenn remembers it because it was before the cell tower was approved.
Through the chairman, if you can want to give me
Go ahead, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I do remember that work in 05. I drove by it. I originally permitted the building directly to the west. And lastly, yes, we have a complete closeout. Gary Magnuson was brought back in by Dan Prouty to do a report, to review all DEP's analysis on the 21E. And that the peer reviewer, because the company went out of business that did the original work in 05, Gary did work on this for Dan, and then again brought Gary back in and reviewed everything from DEP, and it has been closed out. That is part of the certificate of compliance, that document. Request for certificate.
All right.
Thank you.
Steve, anything?
I'm good with recommendations.
Yeah, and I am also good with the continuation to the next to the March 2nd.
Thank you.
You think you'll have it all done by then, Mr. Robot?
Yeah, well, through the chairman, we anticipate having the plan. Talking to Mr. Baum, we're hoping and we anticipate to have the plan within 7 days or so that we can clearly make your when is your next meeting?
March 2nd.
March 2nd. I would say that that's being around 30 days from now, that we would have the plan in advance so that we can continue this meeting at March 2nd, and the commission could then vote if they choose to either inspect it and or go for the peer reviewer.
Great. Now, do we ask for audience input?
Yes.
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 150 Charlton Road application? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 150 Charlton Road application? There's no one to speak, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you. So we are asking for continuation. I'm asking for a hand vote. Eric?
In favor?
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle?
In favor.
Steve?
Steve Holdeman in favor.
And Ed? In favor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commission.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
We are now at, what's the time on this?
6:45.
Yep. Okay, great. We're at 7:02. So we are at 27 Ladd Road. Continued NOI, trail system and bridge within a commercial outdoor recreational facility, DEP file number 300-1056. R. Jennings, 508 International, Ona A. Salou, and representative is Ed O'Neill. So we have someone here.
Glenn Kowalski.
Mr. Chair, this
Glenn,
is Stephen Chittister. I'm recused for this hearing.
Yep. So noted, Stephen. Thank you.
Ed, can I start? Yeah,
Yep.
so I just want to add, so we did receive some new information today from Mr. Kowalski, the applicant's representative. We did receive a letter stating that the applicant, through their representative, is formally requesting a withdrawal of the notice of intent for 27 Ladd Road. So I do have that letter. And then in addition to that letter, I did receive another letter from Mr. Kowalski with outlining their intent to comply with the enforcement order, condition number 5, by removing the telephone bridge. And there's some notes on here about how they would do that that I can share. It was just received today, so I haven't really had time to go through it all, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention as it's new information.
Right. So
Through the chair, if I could.
yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. We understand that the commission frowns severely on information at the last, but we did want it in your hands. We understand that if there's a continuance to hear this in March, the bridge isn't going anywhere. We are withdrawing, and if the commission wants to talk about the points that I brought up in the restoration about how we would remove the telephone bridge, I won't say any more because that's something new to you. But we did outline our methodology in removing and the restoration as required in that condition number 5 on the enforcement order.
All right, gentlemen, how would you like to proceed? Becky, go ahead.
Sorry, the recommendation. I would recommend accepting their withdrawal and closing the public hearing for the notice of intent. And then as far as the restoration plans for compliance with the enforcement order, I would agree with Mr. Kowalski that I think that we should continue that discussion on our next meeting agenda, so that way everyone on the board has, and the staff have the opportunity to review that and maybe think about any potential conditions that may be necessary or not for that. So that would be my recommendation. I would add the enforcement order on the next meeting agenda under
Okay.
For discussion.
Thank you.
That end, Mr. Chairman,
Right.
I'd like to move that we close the public hearing.
First, we want to hear from the public.
Public comment.
Public comments.
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 27 Ladd Road application? Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 27 Ladd Road application? There's no one on the line, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
The court, I would like to
David?
make a motion. And we close the public hearing after several years worth of tremendous.
Eric Gaspar, resounding second.
Thanks,
Discussion.
Eric.
Hearing none. Eric, how do you vote?
Well, I guess we're accepting their withdrawal, so I accept their withdrawal.
David? David?
I wholeheartedly, David Barnacle, I accept their withdrawal.
Steve?
Steve Haldeman, I'm very happy to accept their withdrawal.
And Ed Goodwin, I accept the withdrawal. And, okay, great. So,
Right.
and Becky, you give Glenn a meeting time for the next
Right.
meeting?
We don't need a meeting time, do we? It's just under old business, I guess, under the
Under old
enforcement order, right?
Right, it's not a public hearing, so it's
Not a
going to be.
public
Not a
my-
public hearing? Okay.
Yeah, I would just add that I'd probably, we do for that applicant have the other enforcement order that was issued afterwards. I would like to add that on that meeting agenda too, for discussion as well. And, I can speak to Mr. Kowalski, after the meeting to discuss that and see where things are with that one too, to give you an update at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Good. All set with that, Glenn?
Thank you very much for your time. Very
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'll see you later on, if you don't mind me saying, at 9 Holland. But appreciate your time. Thank you again.
Yeah.
We missed you, Glenn.
I appreciate you saying that. I have my new headset. You don't even see it, Mr. Halterman. That's how you can hear me better. Thank you for your advice to me on getting that. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right, we are now to 8 North Drive, Notice of Intent, Replacement of a Failed Septic System, DEP file number 300-1089. Becky, do we have an engineer here?
Yep, we do. Andy Baum's on.
Andy, how are you?
I'm well, Mr. Chairman. How are you?
Good, good.
So I'm Andy Baum from Summit Engineering. We're the project engineer for this project. Thank you, Becky. The applicant is the homeowner. He's looking to sell his home. The existing on-site sewage disposal system was found to be, the leach field was found to be in failure as part of his inspection in November. And we were contracted to, one, go through an alternatives analysis, and two, figure out the best location to put a new leach field on his property. This lot is actually on the corner of 148 and North Drive, on the kind of southwest corner of it. There's a wetland complex that comes across 148 underneath a large culvert, and then drains to the southwest on that plan. The wetlands were delineated by Charles Karen, and they're shown on your plan. I believe you all walked the site. The complex goes all the way from the northeast corner down to off his property. The house is located just planned north of that image that everyone can see. There's an existing septic tank, and the driveway is located to the left of it. There's an existing one-car garage off the end of the driveway. As part of the exploration process, we tested in a few locations, but we were limited to one location being located behind the garage. We felt that was the least amount of impact to the vegetation around the site. We did apply for and receive a 3-foot groundwater offset versus a 4-foot groundwater offset to reduce the amount of fill that we need to bring into the site to support the leach field. It will be comprised of a new pump station or pump chamber, a Presby type system, which again reduces the amount of square footage required compared to a conventional pipe and stone system. And then if you look, we're right at the 100-foot well offset because there is no town water for this particular house. The well is located in front of the dwelling. It's a 3-bedroom house, and the system's designed to accommodate a 3-bedroom house in kind. Erosion controls are proposed around the limit of work. There'll be some minor clearing of underbrush, but you can see where the brush line cuts the kind of right-hand side of the leach field fill. Pretty simple project. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But I think Mr. Harvey is ready to get this going.
Becky, any comments?
Only a few comments. So we did do a site visit out there. We did review the site. I don't anticipate any concerns or have any major concerns with this. One of my recommendations would be that since the system will be going in outside of the growing season, I would recommend that looking at having it seeded and having an erosion control blanket installed over that, just to reduce any potential erosion concerns that we might see with frost and thaw until it can be vegetated, and especially too because this will be a property that has a current sale, so it will be a change of ownership there. So that would be my recommendation if the system is put in outside the growing season. Otherwise, they have erosion control barriers installed in here, which seems sufficient for the project. The one other thing that was noted on site was the leach pit near the driveway with the drain, the pipe drain that was installed with the trench to the catch basin on North Drive. Spoke to DPW about it. Tying into town drainage systems is not allowable. I'd recommend having a condition added just to have that removed, and it appears there's probably sufficient area on the property for them to kind of figure out how to manage their stormwater there. So I would just add that in as a condition.
Andy, you have any comment on that?
My only concern, I don't mind working to figure out a way to shed the water. That house is a ranch. The driveway is set up with a low spot, unfortunately. I think that's presumably why that was installed. I believe the owner is online too, if he can speak more to it, if he knows any details about that particular drain. I just don't want to cut off a drain and cause a flood inside that dwelling.
This is Brian Harvey. I'm the current owner. It was that system was put in prior to my purchase of the home, and I would say that if it was removed, that there would be the potential of having some water come into the garage area. So it definitely does help with drainage whenever there is a severe storm.
Brian, is it a sump pump?
There is a sub pump within the garage, yes. The actual the drain, the system that we're talking about is not a sub pump, no.
What is it? A perimeter drain? Where's the sump pump go?
Well, the sub pump's in the garage, but the system that we're talking about is just a dry well. It's just a well that fills up.
And then the pipe takes the water to the town.
It shoots it out into the water to the woods. There is I'm probably not using the correct terminology, sorry, but there is a town catch basin near my property, yes.
And that's what it goes into. That's what they're talking about.
Okay.
That was referenced to the DPW director, and that he's responsible for that. And it's against town regulations or law or whatever to put to pipe to a town.
Yeah, the pipe doesn't go to that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just to add, the pipe goes into the forested area, and then there's like a dug trench. So maybe one option, maybe Andy can help him with that, is removal of that trench and maybe some modification in that area as a depression where maybe, that water can, sit and have the opportunity to infiltrate instead of the trench, which directs it right into the catch basin. So maybe there's a kind of easy fix out there, kind of cutting off that trench and modifying some area that can help, retain that water.
We could shoot some grades and see what we can do with that water.
Yeah. Okay.
I just want to make sure we're not pitching it back towards his garage.
Well, we've got to find a solution to, piping it to the town system.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Anything else on this?
I have one question. Okay, can you put that plan back up again, please? Andy, I'm just curious, would it be possible to move the Presby system southwest a little bit and turn it slightly so that it's not bumping right flat up against the 100-foot buffer zone, so that there is at least some gapping between the contours that you see and the actual 100-foot buffer? It looks like there's still numerous feet of space so that it could be twisted slightly and move southwest.
So, Mr. Chair, Mr. Barnacle, the slope increases in gradient as you go to that plan southwest, and it actually gets steeper. So what would happen is the catch-up grade would be increased, just trying to slide it out of that particular area.
Okay, thank you.
That was topographically, that would seem to be the best location for that.
Anybody else? Any other comments? Steve. Go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to comment on one of Becky's notes about the tree clearing that was observed, and just to reiterate that Conservation Commission needs to be made aware of any cutting before it happens within the 200-foot buffer.
Okay.
That's it for me.
Brian? Yeah. It's going to a new owner anyway, Stephen, you know.
Okay.
I'm going to put it in there. I wasn't being negative. I was just adding a problem to the solution. Becky, can we put something in?
Yeah, so we do have a perpetual condition that does address that. There's no new additional alteration without review and approval from the commission first. So any property owner that's going to buy this, the permit will be recorded on the deed, and they'll be able to review those conditions. So I just want to go back to the drain too. I think that the drain can be resolved as adding a condition, not to hold up this permit. I just recommend, we add a condition that the removal of the stormwater connection, and that they develop a plan which they submit to the board for review and approval. That way we can move forward with the issuance of the permit for the septic replacement.
Good.
It's a good idea.
Hey, go ahead, Steve.
Real quick, you didn't get an answer to your question of where does the water from the sump pump in the garage go? Where does that water go?
That
Brian?
Can you answer that? I don't know.
Yep, that exits the back of the house. So the south portion of the house.
Does it just go on the ground?
Having done many multiple tests and had to pick the answer without knowing the answer, it's piped to the wetland. That would be my guess. That would be the most logical spot for it to go, and that would be someplace down gradient.
But I assume, I noticed you didn't get an answer, so
Yeah.
my curiosity, something we need to know.
All right. Moving forward. Anybody else?
Look, Ed.
Jeff, you want to see if anybody in the audience wants to speak to this?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 8 North Drive application replacement of a failed septic system? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 8 North Drive application? Is there anybody out there anyway? Okay.
Jeff, ever since you took your picture down, nobody's calling in.
I don't quite know how to read that, Mr. Chairman, but there's no one to speak to that application.
All right, thank you. Do I have a motion? Close the public hearing.
So moved, Steve Haldeman.
Second,
Do I have a
Eric
second?
Gaspar.
Any discussion? Seeing none from the chair, I would like to, find out where the sump pump pumps to make sure that it's legit. And what was the other? Becky had talked about the tree, making sure that was on the order of condition to make sure no more cutting within 200 feet without coming to the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, no new additional
Anything else
alteration.
that I forgot?
And then we just talked about the removal of the connection to the stormwater system.
Right. Having said that, do I have someone would like to make a motion?
Already have. Need a vote.
Oh, no, we closed the public hearing, David. We didn't make a motion?
Yes.
We didn't make a motion. We need a motion to, you making a motion, David?
No, Eric made the motion.
Did you, Eric?
Well, I can, but I don't think I did.
Yeah, go ahead. I didn't think it did either.
So I make a motion that we approve DEP file 300-1089. Is that right? Yeah, with the conditions stated and the agent's notes.
And do I have a second?
Steve Haldeman, I second that motion.
Any further discussion?
A lot of pressure, David. You generally take the lead on those.
Oh yeah, all in favor? Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle?
David Barnacle in favor.
Steve Haldeman?
Steve Haldeman in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Thank you, Andy.
All right, thank you.
Eric, I thought that you had made a motion to close the public hearing, and I don't remember the vote.
Well,
We didn't.
we're there now. We got there.
We got there. I promised us.
Throwing a curveball. All right, we are now at 118 Lead Mine, the continued construction of a single-family home, DEP file number 1086. Gary Kell here. Gary, you here?
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
Good. How are you, sir?
Good. Becky, do you want to speak first, or do you want the applicant to speak first? What do you want to do?
Yeah, I'll just give a quick update from where we left off the last meeting because it's been a little while. So this project was last discussed mid-December. At that time, it was continued until February. What we talked about in December was kind of going over some of the things we talked about at the November meeting, the things that still needed to be worked on and addressed, and Mr. Kelleher gave an update where he was able to start some of the restoration activities. So what we're looking at here, what we have in front of us is we have a notice of intent for the new house. We also have the enforcement order for the unpermitted work that occurred, and the enforcement order was also for the outstanding expired permit for additional work that was permitted in the past on the property. Wasn't in compliance with that permit. So I think it'd be useful to kind of start with the current notice of intent, with where things kind of stand in an update. What we had talked about in November was coming back with a revised plan for the board to look at, incorporating some of their comments at that time. We received today a revised plan for that. That I briefly took a look at. I can share it on the screen, but the commission hasn't had the opportunity to look at that. So I recommend we start there, and then we can kind of move into some of the other things that we've talked about. We recently had a site visit out there to look at options for bringing the project back into compliance. With the site visit that we performed last week, myself and another commission member performed a site visit before that. We did take a look at different areas in the property. We did get to see, the ground's frozen, so we can't do like a thorough review of the restoration work on the upper portion of the lot, but we did see that he was able to start some of those activities. There's a few other things that still need to occur up there, and that'll be weather permitting, understandable, in the spring. We did talk about some of the work and made some recommendations, inclusion of some erosion controls, et cetera, out there. We also did look at the lower lot area and made some recommendations that we talked about before, about some of the concerns that were outstanding there. Still within resource area, some resource area mitigation that was required as part of the original permit, and then the paved driveway area down there. At the second site visit, when we went back out there, we did look at and noted Mr. Kelleher did mark some areas of pavement that he'd like to remove. I do have a draft plan that I'll put up and I shared with the board already. But we also did look again at the restoration work area where the current notice of intent is, and did see some additional cutting, pruning, and cutting of some, what we noticed was smaller hemlocks up there, and work that was still occurring up there. So after that site visit, I did contact the property owner and reminded him that it's a cease and desist and not to be doing any of that work up there. So there was some additional work that had occurred up there at that time. So I guess I'll pass it over. I see Brian Hill is here from the engineering firm, if he wants to go over. And like I said, I have the plan that was presented today for the notice of intent for the house. However, the board has not had the opportunity to review that in advance of this meeting because it was received today. So I can share my screen.
Sure. I'll go over those changes. They're really minor changes, so I think that should be pretty clear. Oh, there you go. So one thing in particular was the vista clearing. So we're not doing the vista clearing, abandoning that. We're coming out of the 200-foot riverfront entirely. Actually, almost the entire 100-foot buffer zone. We're about 90 feet on the southeast side of the property. That was one of the comments, was the vista pruning. And then the other comment was the driveway runoff. We're going to riprap line the swale in the road, along the road. From the wetland. We had the culvert pipe in there already under the driveway, but now we're going to riprap the swale in the road as well to improve the water quality as it passes down the road. And he doesn't own the next property, but if he could communicate with the neighbor to do the same, it would certainly help the water quality running down the road to have a proper swale. So those are the plans. And then I know he's done a lot of work. I think he's already moved the garage forward and done a lot of the plantings in that near the garage area where we've got the dark gray, the dark hatch area. That area, a lot of it's been planted out, and then also I believe the red line that runs through the wetland, which was a man-made ditch. I believe that's been filled, and a lot of that's been planted as well. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to see that before the snow got on it.
Yeah, we were out there, Brian. I mean, we did see there was some mountain laurel that was transplanted out there, but doing a thorough investigation of the restoration work, I mean, it's not something that we can do at this time. But I don't know that all of the restoration work, it hasn't been completed, which is understandable because it's winter. So I think there's still a lot of plantings that would need to go in. We did look at, there's still some kind of fill that was left within where the crossing was that we talked to Mr. Kelleher about trying to move that out. And then also within the wetland, the ditch that was created within the wetland, there was some riprap that was put in there, which wasn't what one of the notes on the plan said. So that we talked to him about having done. So I think there's still work that needs to be done to complete that restoration up there. But obviously, that's something that's going to have to occur in the spring because it can't happen now.
I think what we're trying to do is move to the next phase, which is to allow us to also not only complete the restoration, but also in the spring too. I mean, as soon as we're able to get the sediment barrier in place and start work on the rest of it.
When you say start work on the rest of it, you mean start on the new house?
Yeah, right. The rest of this proposed plan here. So we've got the restoration area here, and we've got the proposed house. And you guys, I had given us the permits to move forward with the restoration work. So I guess what we're trying to move forward with is also the sediment barrier and the limit work, and getting forward with the house as well.
Well, I think well, you can hear from the committee, but from my point of view, I think we need to decide what we're doing with the driveway. I think we need to decide what we're doing with the parking area across the street. I think we need to decide what we're doing and agree to have it done. I mean, you might decide what we're doing is probably the wrong terminology, with the stream coming down and crossing the road, and that is wearing away the wall, and that pipe is relatively new. I don't know who put it in or when, but it's eroding the land on that side, and we asked for a plan on that. What else is there that I've missed, Becky? Please. We really need to have the first part completed before we start the house.
So I know that we gave you the position for the lower house, but it sounds like there was some meetings and discussion about removing pavement, talking about some new things to me.
There were discussions.
Yeah, I can put those sketches up if you want to start discussion about. Yeah, I'll put that up for you.
If I may, through the chair, Mr. Goodwin, there's still two separate lots, so you're still saying that everything down below has to be completed before I'm allowed to progress on the upper lot?
That's correct.
I think we also should emphasize that work that you noticed on your recent site visit that was not permitted needs to be ceased. It needs to stop being done. You can't continue doing stuff that isn't permitted by the permits that you have in hand.
From what I understood, Mr. Barnacle, you have lifted the cease and desist so we could do the restoration work. We have been cleaning up top. Yes, we did. Some of us mistakenly cut down a couple of small saplings where the proposed location of the driveway per the commission will be. Other than that, we haven't done any work up above. But again, Rebecca did say that there is a cease and desist. Well, I guess it was my understanding, sir, that you lifted the cease and desist so I could do restoration work. Now, all of a sudden, we have a cease and desist, so I can't do anything. I guess we should make up our mind.
So I guess, I think that's a little unfair. I think we're pretty generous in lifting the cease and desist, but you can't be your own worst enemy and do things that, by your own admission just a few moments ago, said was a mistake. Well, mistakes can't happen in this case.
Yeah, and I've apologized.
And so, we trusted that this was going to get done in accordance with what we thought was going to be a reasonable timeline, and it didn't. And now I think it's a little unfair for you to come at us as the board when you just admitted that there were some activities that shouldn't have been done. So, I never want anybody to feel like we are holding them to an unfair standard, but the reality is I think we've been generous here with allowing you to do some stuff to rectify the issues, but yet the common theme is there's a continuation of for lack of a better term, bad behavior that keeps getting thrown in our face. And that's, that's disappointing to hear from my seat.
I appreciate your comments, Eric, and I certainly appreciate your comments in the past. I have admitted to making that mistake, and I have ceased all work up there. My confusion, apparently, because the cease and desist was lifted, I got a son that's anxious to live in town. Even give the town some tax revenue. Just wanted to clean up. Maybe we got a little carried away. It stopped as soon as I got Rebecca's message. It stopped, and it won't happen again. I want it cleaned up. This has been no fault of yours, Eric. This has been a delay for a year for me. This has been a tremendous situation as far as cost, thousands of dollars I put into this, and all I wanted to do initially, Eric, if you remember, was just to see if it would perk first before I started the permitting process. I've had nice site visits with all of you. Even Mr. Halterman come up and got to park his car in the parking lot. I saved a spot for him. So I did certainly put down, I don't want to have to remove driveway. I understand I went through it the wrong way. So roughly, the sketches I sent Rebecca is roughly a 500 square feet removal of impervious surface. Hopefully the board will do that. We've also talked about the erosion that goes on the roadway near the creek, which was long before me, that the previous owner was never made to act on, but I am. I will repair that. I'll do that myself. I've also talked to Rebecca, Mr. Halterman.
We need a plan for that. We don't want you to just go ahead and do it.
Well, I think we have that all in the plans.
Rima did the plan for him. The engineer, the surveyor. Rima did a plan for that. It's in the notice of intent already for that house down there to do that restoration work.
What we're talking about, he was talking about the stream. I thought he was talking about the stream crossing the road.
Well, yeah,
right, along in the stream. Yeah, that's in the mitigation plan that was already approved by the board. It's outstanding.
Yes, that was approved by the board for the previous owner.
Yeah, just to add that that was part of the mitigation for the project, and it wasn't completed when that project was built. So I think what they had proposed at that time was erosion control blanket and plantings along there. What we looked at the last time we were out there is that, due to the additional erosion that's probably happened there over time, that might not be the best solution. So we left it that a plan should be developed if that can't be incorporated, which I don't know that would be sufficient for that location at this time. But the commission, is still looking for the mitigation that was required as part of that permit. If that's something that, Brian, I don't know if you or Norm have looked at that, you think that that's still sufficient from an engineer perspective? I think the commission would evaluate having that done.
I took a good look at that. Yeah, there was two components in that mitigation plan, and one was the planting, and that he did do some of those plantings. But a more difficult part was along the edge of the road where the stream is very steep. He was supposed to use an erosion control blanket and some plantings, and that didn't happen. It's still an exposed slope. So there's not a lot of space between the road and the stream. So it's a difficult,
no, it's a
you
problem.
couldn't just put plants there. It has to, you really have to follow the plan.
Right. You're absolutely correct.
But still, it seems to work fine. If the erosion control blanket and the appropriate plantings are put in, it would work.
When are you going to put the blanket in?
Well, I can't do any of that work, Mr. Goodwin, until springtime when I can dig out the side of the road there, place the blanket, and put some retainers in there. I agree with everyone. There are no room for plantings there anywhere. I think Rebecca and Steve Halterman saw that best last week or the week before, whenever they were up here.
Going to the tar in the driveway. Becky, have you got the proposal on that? Could you put that up?
I also have pictures we took out there too, if you want me to show them.
Somebody got a call coming in?
Could you
What
zero that
spec is this?
if we're talking about the blacktop being removed, could you just enlarge that thing? We're just focusing on that section.
Yeah, please.
Is that better?
Yeah, thanks.
Is that better?
Yeah, you could even knock it, another notch here. We're really just talking about the blacktop around the house. Yeah, there you go. It's better. And the thing across the area across the street. That's perfect.
Well, the area across the street is not blacktop.
What? Who spoke?
Oh, I did. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
There's a line where the
Well, I'd like to speak on that if nobody else is.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you're going to thank me. The triangle was marked differently than Becky had pointed out. So it's hard to tell looking at this plan exactly where it hits the road, how wide it is. But that's a simple thing to fix. On the other side, the amount that's being requested to remove is a really a small amount compared to what was put down. My recommendation when we were there was to say that if the commission was going to allow a driveway to the on this plan to the upper left of that little rectangle area that has blacktop has to be removed to get because the septic system got covered up. So anyway, if the commission were going to allow a blacktop driveway, I said, in my opinion, it should be about a 12-foot area of blacktop left to go measured from the edge of that rain garden area. And what was marked out there was considerably more than that. I think a question here is to have it all removed from the side of the house there and replaced with stone, or if the commission, in my opinion, was going to allow a paved driveway to go back along the side of the house, that it be only 12 feet. That's probably, I don't know, I don't have my scale, but it's probably, 15 or 16 feet.
Mr. Haldeman, thank you. I guess I'm a little confused because you said you would support the plan as we discussed on the site. It is 14 feet.
I don't know. Your memory is worse than mine. I said, you said you stood where you thought it should be, and I said, why do you need it that wide? And you said, because it costs a lot of money. I've never supported where you're standing.
Okay.
I paid. Hang on. Wait a minute. Let me finish. Thank you. I paved off 12 feet. And I said, I would support that if the commission wants to leave any blacktop there. And when I went back out there, I was a little annoyed, to say the least, that you had marked it exactly where you stood. And I said, I will not vote for that. So that's the situation.
May I speak now?
So Gary, am I to assume that everything interior here that isn't blue hash lines is tar?
That's correct.
Or it's going to be tar?
It is tar currently.
Yeah, and the blue hashed out areas are tar also, right?
So those have to be cut out. The small rectangle you see in the middle, that's why when Rebecca and Steve come up, I did mention to them that if I left it at 12 feet, because that sticks out in the odd position it's in, it wouldn't give much of a pull-off for a car. So Mr. Haldeman did say 12 feet, and it is marked at 14, and only because of that island for the spring, and that's all. We did talk about, excavating the boundary with and filling with 3/4 round stone. The triangle, Steve, actually, when you were Rebecca there, we brought it to that rock sign. It's labeled as rock sign, but I brought it out a little bit further than that, which is still pervious all around that rock sign. So that was pretty much the triangle that we spoke about. So that's what I have.
Okay, how far will the new tar driveway be from the stream or from resource area?
Well, the corner of the front right corner of the foundation is 25 feet from the creek. So you'll have 25 plus a little bit. Obviously, the creek goes one way and the triangle goes another. So you'll have better than the 25 feet by the time you get out.
What's it going to be next to the house? If you go straight from the house to the creek, from the tar, because there's tar right at the corner of the step. What distance is that?
From the corner of the house, the front to the creek is 25 feet, and I believe Steve pushed that off as well.
So I just want to add, I think that the yellow line on the plan here is the limit of work from the original approved permit, and where it's straight here, that is the 25. We did ask that the 25 and the 50-foot buffer be put on this plan, but I had measured it. The straight line here is 25 feet from the edge of wetland, which is the stream here, and it looks like, that follows as like a straight line here. So probably the 25-foot buffer kind of follows down. So that is the 25-foot buffer from what I can tell here.
Why wouldn't we want to go to the limit of work?
Well, I'm just saying that, and that's fine. We talked about the 25 feet. This is just hand sketched by me. I certainly don't have a to keep the 25-foot rule. It looks like it's really.
All right. Stephen, what do you think?
Yeah, Ed, my opinion is that it should be brought to the original limit of work, to the 25-foot.
Eric?
And I agree with Steve Halterman that if we decide as a board to let the tar remain along the side of the house, that it should not be any more than 12 feet.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is all a bunch of going back and forth and back and forth. I just like to go back to the original permit, and the original permit, the limit at work was if those yellow lines overlay with the original permit, I'd like to keep it within what was originally permitted, and we just follow through with what we had all agreed to, however many years ago. That would satisfy my needs.
I agree with that. To Stephen.
Yeah, David.
David Barnacle, I agree with what Eric just indicated.
Becky, that's okay. So we've made one decision as a board.
Okay. Just before we move off on that, we had talked about, and Mr. Kelleher mentioned it too, is that doing like some stone trenches around there for stormwater. Would you want to see some type of stormwater infiltration along the edges of the driveway?
Inside the limit of work.
Well, that's up for you guys to discuss, I guess. But.
Well,
Well, that's outside the limit of work. That does not have to be filled with stone. Do I hear that correct?
No, you didn't hear that correct. You got it in reverse.
Can I make a comment here? Maybe this might help.
Sure,
In the order of conditions for this particular house, it said that if a driveway was going to be paved, that deciding where the driveway or how big the driveway would be paved would be done in a future meeting. You guys didn't really decide on that plan, and it wasn't shown on the plan. But there was that note in the order of conditions. So I think we're kind of having that discussion right now as to where the driveway can be. I'd like to just recommend that I don't know why you got removing driveway along the lot line away from the wetland on the opposite side. It might make more sense to remove driveway near the wetland and then you could provide parking on the side of the house.
Yeah. There's some logic to what you say, Brian.
You kind of have some dash lines here on the other side of the house as well, down the lot line.
The problem we're having,
really
we're having is trying to get to a resolution, Brian. And in getting to a resolution, we do have a limit of work as a committee. We're dealing as a committee, and if you came back with a proposal that was better than what we're proposing, I would imagine we would consider it. But right now, we're struggling with trying to get tar out of the driveway. We're trying to do it in a uniform way that isn't like trying to penalize. We're trying to make this project what it was supposed to be.
Right.
Changes changes are not evil, but when you're not making progress, changes can be, more lack of progress.
I mean, I'm all for removing the pavement and getting the cars further from the wetlands. I'm all for that. But on the other side, he does need some parking. I'm trying to think if we can. I know it's outside the limit of work, but this is the opposite side from the wetland.
Well, there's wetlands everywhere, Brian, down there. So,
well, there's
the lake has wetlands. You can they're flagged on the plan up there too. It's further from the wetlands. I'd like to make a recommendation for the board. I think that you've decided, you've given him the feedback to pull the paved driveway back to the limit of work. I would recommend maybe allowance of engineered design, infiltration trench along the edge of the driveway outside of the limit of work to allow for some stormwater management for what's coming off that pavement. In addition, because what's coming off on the other side of the house, the roof runoff is going down that way too. So I do think it would be an improvement to add that in there, and maybe the allowance of, if it's a 1 foot wide, I'm not really sure exactly what would be needed, where the water is pitching to would be more important, I guess, but maybe to give the allowance for a well-designed but not, obviously overly intrusive towards the river, something for stormwater management there.
So you're saying a stone swale, a foot wide inside the limit of work?
Not an engineer, so I don't know what's needed over there, but I would say 1 to 2 feet wide.
So that would be additional. That would be additional pavement that would come out.
Well, it would be within the footprint of what's coming out. It would be right outside the yellow line where the pavement's coming out. So just add it down the side, and then I don't know if you can see my cursor, but we talked about it in this area too. Just have something there, because here there's a lot of runoff coming off. The roof runoffs come down here too. So I think that would be a good improvement for the resource area. That maybe you could give them some discretion, give them a little space outside the limit of work to do that.
I have a question.
All right. Go ahead, Eric.
Is the limit of work is where you're talking about to put the additional crushed stone? Is that outside the 25 foot?
Well, actually, on this side, it would be within 25 feet.
25.
So it'd be within 25.
Yeah.
What about on the other side?
The other side, it would be outside of, because wetlands are across the street, and then we've got the lake, and we've got looks like a DPW flag down here with the lake. So we're definitely outside.
I'd be okay with giving a little bit of allowance there on that side for additional crushed stone or infiltration outside of the limit of work, but I would like to keep the limit of work and outside of the 25 foot on the other side where the propane tank is. So maybe we can come to an accommodation here that gets us, both satisfied at the end of the day. So I'd be satisfied with that as long as we're not within the 25 foot.
Okay. Brian, could you design something like that?
Oh yeah. I'm going to design whatever we come to agree here with. My only point was that I was thinking we could take some more pavement away from the front of the house by the stream and then keep that driveway as is, more so over there, rather than removing, because that 10 feet along the lot line provides, some much needed parking.
Would the commission be amenable to Brian putting a plan just for this one thing together and showing it to Becky?
So how much are you talking about removing all of the blacktop in front of the house and leaving the parking lot on the other side? What is it you're talking about? And just making that stone?
No, he's talking about. Go ahead, Brian. What he's talking about is bringing the on the stream side, getting the parking lot outside of the 25-foot and into the zone, the no-build zone. Go ahead.
I have a recommendation. Maybe what Brian should do is put together 2 draft proposals to present to you, so that way you can see it on a plan, and that way we can have a better discussion and look at both options. And that way we can kind of keep the conversation moving here, because it's hard to, be trying to design this during the meeting, I think. I mean, they're going to have to come back with something anyways. I think they've heard what you want, and if they want something else, maybe they can find a way to show that and show some mitigation for that too, I guess.
All right. I'm going to ask for a continuation from Gary.
Let's just move across.
What?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the parking lot across the street. So we talked about the driveway.
Sure.
I think they've got some guidance to come back with that. I would recommend we talk about the stream and the restoration work that needs to be done for the bank and the roadway over there. I think that, the REMA plan from 07 or whatever it was, might not be sufficient, is what we've kind of decided over there, and that you guys will work to put a plan together to come back to the commission for that. The more natural approaches you can do there, the better, but you're going to have to really look at it. It might be a hard location to do something, but come back with a plan for that. So that's 2 areas. And then we should talk about, right across the street, the parking lot area. Just to quickly summarize, they show some area of wetland fill that's been identified that they're already proposing to take out. So we met and we looked at that on site. I'm not, it was winter and we didn't kind of dig around or anything, but not, we visually kind of looked at that where things would need to come out. I think that, we just need to confirm that what's on the plan there is consistent with that. What we talked about on site was that the boulders would be pulled back away from that. They would do the wetland restoration work as noted on the plan, and then some native shrub plantings will be planted back there. So I guess, it seems like that would be a proposal that would be supported, but I think this plan would need to be modified to reflect moving those boulders back, et cetera.
How far did you discuss moving the boulders?
What would you say, Steve? I don't want to put a number we didn't measure.
Yeah, I think what we seemed to agree on was moving them back about 25% of, or maybe 30% of the space that's there from the side of the road. Seemed minimal, but certainly.
It seems that's about 4 feet, 5 feet.
That seems about right. The stream side edge, if that got moved back 4 or 5 feet, and it's hard. We probably should have measured it, but maybe take up about half of that space there.
Yeah, the width of the wetland fill there is marked as 7 feet wide. So the edge of the boulders is about 5 feet from the edge of the wetland. So if you went another 4 feet, you'd be 9 feet from the wetland. But that would still provide enough space there, I think, for a car too.
Yeah.
All right, so that's what we need. We need that on a plan.
Yeah, it sticks out in the corner there. We can certainly pull that back a little.
And do those 3 things satisfy the issues with the lower lot?
No, I don't think so. Well, I think we had to get them on a plan and get them completed. But,
Well, I mean, it'd be great to get it all on one plan. So, I mean, if there's more discussion, have it.
What else is there?
So we talked about the upper lot. You didn't really have an opportunity to look at that plan in advance. So I think that's advisable that you review that. We have a month until the next meeting. So, I mean, it definitely gives the project team enough time to work on completing the revised plans. I would ask that, it's submitted in advance so the commission can have the opportunity to look at it. And that way we can have the most productive conversation during the meeting. And, we kind of stay on track too. So we do ask 7 days in advance to have the materials in. And maybe at that time, prior to the next meeting, if weather conditions are more favorable, in, any additional restoration work, or we can get a better look at what's been done up there, we can take a look at that. But just a reminder, no additional work to establish the new house location.
Can I ask a question, Becky, or Ed of Becky?
Sure.
So, just reading through, if we're talking about the first property, the uphill property, the letter from Mr. Murphy, are you at all in agreement with his assessment as what he laid out in the letter here?
No, I think he says that the restoration's been completed as shown on the plan, and no, I don't agree that the restoration work has been completed as shown on the plan. And I think I noted earlier, some of the reasons why. So obviously that work's going to have to continue in the spring, but I think that it's important and a reminder that the commission did approve that the homeowner could do the work, provided the oversight was done by by his consultant. So I think it's important that proper oversight is being done to help, get it done right the first time so we're not having these issues. So I think that's important.
Yeah, and I did hear what you said earlier. I just wanted to have it stated for Mr. Kelleher that please make sure that your professional guidance is in line with what we can see with our own eyes, because it hurts the credibility of the entire project when our commission and our staff looks at a letter and it's almost laughable, and this is a professional. So if I could just make a note that you might want to talk to your advisors on what they are submitting to us in the future.
Okay, very well. Chairman,
yes.
I would extend that thought, and we originally said that you needed a wetland scientist to oversee this work, and somehow that got overridden. I remember, but I'm not going to say it. We need a wetland scientist, and not somebody that's going to that we're complaining about that letter. That to me is, I don't know, grounds for replacing him with a wetland scientist who is a wetland scientist, not a construction guy that knows a lot about wetlands or knows a little bit about restoration. So that's what I recommend is we look at a wetland scientist.
Yeah, we had that. We went through that. My only concern with it is to make progress between now and March 2nd. I think we could make that decision at that time if we weren't satisfied with what we got for a plan. What? I beg your pardon?
What's different up on the upper upland, the upper lot? What's going to be different on that plan than what's already there? I mean, we agreed to that plan. and we just need somebody that can oversee that work and make sure that it's done properly. And we had that discussion a long time ago, and we agreed somehow to let somebody that was not a wetland scientist oversee the work, and it's I'd say that hasn't worked, and that we need a wetland scientist in there for that. We have a plan up there. It's down here by the house that we are going to look for another plan, but up there, I don't think we're looking for another plan. We have a plan. It's just not being followed. And I'm sure it will be in the spring. I don't have a problem with it.
I believe Bob Murphy is a wetland scientist, but I mean...
Hold on. Who's speaking?
He's been doing this before. Brian, I believe Bob Murphy is a wetland scientist. I can't speak for him. I don't want to speak for him.
Anybody else have a comment? Stephen?
Yeah, I just want to make one. Becky touched on this earlier, but I do have a lot of concerns about the culvert that goes underneath the road that's piping the stream from one side to the other. I understand there was a statement made that was done a long time ago. I'm a little confused because the plastic looks like it's brand new. It still has shipping plastic wrap on it. So I can't imagine that pipe was put in that long ago. And the problem is that it was put in a location that looks like it actually moved the stream from where it originally was, and it's causing some significant undercutting of not only where it flows into, but right along the road. So I'm concerned about that. There was a lot of water moving through that when we did our site visit the other day, and I can imagine, and it wasn't, particularly, it hadn't rained or, there wasn't a lot of precipitation preceding that. So I'm worried about the long-term viability of where that is piped and how it's piped and how erosion is being handled with that. So I don't want to lose sight of that. I don't want, later to have it come back that we didn't, talk about it or didn't deal with it. So that's my comment.
Could I ask a follow-up on that? A further, would you recommend that the course of that stream be, or the pipe shortcut that sharp right angle, or below that right angle, straighten it out there so there's not that continual erosion coming out of the pipe, and then that water is bounced off of that bank, and then it's undercutting the road? No, you're not an engineer, but what are you kind of hinting at here that we ought to throw out, or just say that the existing situation is not tenable for the future of that road and the wetland?
Yeah, so Steve, my observation was that it looked like the stream originally had flowed in a straight line from one side of the road to the other, and it looks to me like someone rerouted that stream to make it cross the road in a different location than it did before. So it looks like the whole thing was just kind of rerouted. And the problem with that is that with the amount of flow that's coming through that pipe, it's going to, unless there's a major pile of riprap for it to flow into, it's going to completely destroy that, that section where it's flowing into over time. So I don't understand when that was done, how it was done, but it seems to me like it's not done properly. And I just would like that addressed in some fashion. I'm not an engineer, so I'm not going to say how it has to be done, but it clearly does not look like something that's going to be a good solution long term.
Right. So more than just armoring a bank here is what I'm getting at here. That is what I'm hearing you say. needs to be done. And I agree 100%. I was there with those discussions. You're right. The existing location of that pipe is either that or the very, very hard right angle turn at the end of that pipe. One or the other is a problem. So yeah, okay.
All right, gentlemen. I think we've given as much time as we can. I think we're going to have to get a continuation on this project until.
How about the public?
Good idea. Jeff?
Yep, hold on. Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 118 Lead Mine Lane application? Hello, is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 118 Lead Mine Lane application? No public comment, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Jeff. All right, I'd like a continuation. Gary?
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Did you say, were you speaking to me? I was just looking at a picture, but Rebecca said there's a picture. Oh, go ahead.
I said I'd like a continuation.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Does that work for you, Gary?
Yes, sir.
All right. With a yes, sir, all in favor of a continuation till the next meeting? Eric?
In favor.
David?
Drew Barnacle in favor.
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Steve Haldeman?
Steve Haldeman in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Thank you, gentlemen. Well, we're
Main Street and Fifth Street.
Yep, I got it. 30 Main Street, 25th Hill Road, continued notice of intent, development of a residential and commercial cul-de-sac subdivision. DEP file number 300-1086.
All right, so I'll start this one if that's okay. So since the last meeting, at the last meeting, you did vote to request a peer review and did select a peer reviewer. So we had our Allen go out on site to review the wetland delineation and look for vernal pool habitat as required by your peer review request. Also, since the last meeting, the project has been seen by the planning board, and there was the request for the width variance for the road wasn't as approved as requested, so there will be some project revisions. We did receive Art's report Friday evening, so I did share that with the board. I did share that with the project proponent and representatives. Not sure if you had a chance to take a look at it. Art was going to be on the call this evening, but I think he had an issue here, so we don't have him on here. So I can quickly go over it if you would like. Oh, you are, Art? Thank you. Yep. All right, so I don't know if Pete Engel's on, if he wants to start and just kind of give an update with where the project is, since it appears that there will be some changes required to the plans, and we can start there.
Good evening. So like Becky said, we had a planning board meeting last week. We were asking for several waivers from the subdivision regulations. The only one that was not approved as requested was the pavement width. We were asking for 24 feet. The planning board approved a width of 28 feet. So the plans will be changing slightly. The pavement width will increase by 2 feet on each side. The right-of-way is not going to change, so we'll be 2 feet closer to the wetland on one side, but on the east side, we're still, the pavement is still 70 feet from the wetland, and on the western side, we're just over 50 feet from the wetland along the roadway. So we are working on those revisions, as well as in talking with the applicant. We decided to eliminate Lot 1. The developable area was small and likely would be a headache to try to permit and develop as is. So that property is going to be lumped in with the stormwater basin, so we can try to move the basin slightly further away from the wetland and elongate that along the roadway to try to mitigate some impacts to the wetland area there. But we are working on those revisions now. I expect to have those revisions done within a week or so. And hopefully we can get that back to the stormwater peer review to review those new plans. But we also should be filing NEPA this week, so that will get going. And then obviously we'll have to work on implementing response to Art's comments. Not sure we'll be able to incorporate those into the newest plan set. So some of those are going to require some additional field work, I think.
What type of field work in this time of the year?
At this time, probably not. Like I said, we probably won't be able to get on that next plan revision because of the time of year. We'll have to wait for things to thaw out and possibly the springtime for some vernal pool work.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
All right, so maybe at this time, since Art's on, we can let him go over your report. I can share my screen to include his marked up portion of the project plan, so we can kind of, as he's going through, see that visual of what he's referring to. And just a note, we also have John Shevlin, who's the stormwater peer review on. If the commission has any questions thus far for him too.
You ready for me? Art Allen from Ecotech.
Hi, Art. How you doing?
How you doing? Sorry I'm not on video, but as those of you who know me, you're not missing much. I was out on site January 26th, so just before this most recent snowstorm. There was minimal snow cover and no ground frost in the wooded areas. Just want to note initially that my review was limited to the vicinity of the proposed roadway, basically as depicted, for example, on sheet C2 of the definitive subdivision plan. So basically this is just a parcel A, Lot 1, Lot 5, and portions of Lots 2, 3, and 4. And I just want to, make sure the commission's aware of that and that they limit their, approval of resource areas to the areas depicted on the plan. As you know, this is the lots comprise a much larger site, which I actually reviewed it in its entirety back in 2007 as the peer reviewer for the commission. So basically, I reviewed wetland flags by LEC, orange plastic ribbons with LEC on them and consecutively numbered in the A, B, C, and D wetland flag series. I'll start with the A series, which is a bordering vegetated wetland. I reviewed that. A portion of that flag wetland is shown on the subdivision roadway plan from flags A20 to A28. I found those flags to be accurately located, but I also noted a seasonal ponding area within the limits of those flags, and I actually noted it on the plan section that Becky's showing, and I included a photo of the ponding, actually frozen ponding within that area. And it, again, appears to be a relatively shallow seasonal ponding, which could provide a vernal pool habitat, but it would need to be evaluated in the spring following the spring vernal pool migration. I also evaluated the B series wetland, all of the flags in the B series wetland from B1 to 16. I found those flags to be accurately located. I did not note any evidence of ponding or stream flow within wetland B, although I did note a filled berm that's been recently used as what appears to be a roadway for heavy equipment in some recent logging activity on the site. The filled berm separates the B series wetland from the down gradient C series wetland. The berm makes the B series wetland into an isolated vegetated wetland. I noted evidence of relatively fresh, unweathered subsoil exposed on the top of the berm, as well as rutting from the recent heavy equipment. It appeared to me that fill may have been placed recently on that berm, although I did find that berm was an upland area in my 2007 site evaluation. But that being said, if fill was recently placed on the berm, that could constitute a violation, because obviously it's within the wetland and directly adjacent to the wetland, or within the buffer directly adjacent to the wetland. I also did not note any evidence of a culvert under the berm, although clearly that wetland B and C series were hydrologically connected prior to the filling of that berm, and removing of that berm or connecting it with a culvert would be beneficial to the hydrology of the wetlands in that area. And relative to the C series wetland down gradient of the berm, I evaluated the flags that have been placed from C1 to C22. I found those flags to be accurately located. This wetland borders on an intermittent stream. The stream itself was not delineated, but it is fully contained within the wetland boundary. The next wetland evaluated was the D series, which is a bordering vegetated wetland that borders on an intermittent stream, again, not separately delineated, but contained within the wetland. I found the D series BVW flags to be accurately located, with one exception. An area of wet meadow BVW extends outside of flags D18 and D19 in the area noted on my sketch. And these flags should be reevaluated and located for the revised plan. Wetland D, I noted, is drained by an existing corrugated metal pipe culvert with an inlet adjacent within the wetland adjacent to flag D16. I attached a photo of the culvert. The culvert's in poor condition. It's partially exposed on the surface. It's got an obvious break in it. And I noted flow from the stream going actually under the inlet of the culvert. It appears to drain to a manhole adjacent to Main Street, and it then appears to join the storm drainage system within Main Street. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act definition of a stream, the culvert itself is a stream. It's carrying a stream. It actually has the resource area bank associated with the culvert, and it should be labeled on the plan as such. It appears the culvert was installed historically without engineering. It's damaged, and it's likely to be undersized. It's not functioning properly as noted. I recommend that any future project should include upgrading the culvert as necessary to function properly. I also noted an undelineated seasonal ponding area, which may be an isolated vegetated wetland. I've labeled that the approximate location and labeled it IVW-A on the sketch. I installed one blue flag labeled IVWA within the area. I've included a photo of it. It was frozen at the time I was out there, basically frozen solid right down through to the base. But I did note some wetland vegetation in that area as well as the frozen ponding. And I recommended the area should be reevaluated and delineated as necessary. I also noted an off-site seasonal ponding area associated with in the watershed and associated with the D-series wetland. That area could provide vernal pool habitat. I've noted it on my plan sketch and also included a photo of that area. It's within 200 feet of the subject site, and I recommended that that area be evaluated in the spring season for vernal pool species. And that's the extent of my my report and findings to date. Thank you.
Questions for Art, anybody? Where in Florida are you, Art?
I just have a quick comment. I read that report.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, I'm in Princeton.
Okay,
Sorry.
I read that report. I just wrote a note. That was a really well done report, and I think you did a really thorough job out there. And I think you provided a tremendous amount of information that is going to be important for this project. And I appreciate that. Good.
Thank you. Glad to help.
Well said. Yeah. Stephen?
Yeah, no, I agree with what Steve just said. Thank you, Art. That was a very good job.
My pleasure.
David?
Comment.
And Eric, where are you?
Right here. Nothing additional.
Nothing additional. All right, we're going to get, when the spring comes, can we get you to take us on a tour?
Certainly.
Good. All right. Becky, any questions?
So I guess my only comment at this point in time is thinking about the potential vernal pool habitat out there and approaching spring. So if it's something that the commission is concerned about and protected under our local bylaw, I think that having some discussion now about what potential requirements you might be looking for from the project team should be done now, only because, one, we don't have another meeting for a month, and that is the beginning of March, and potentially about the time, if not mid-March, depending on how the season goes, that you might be looking for some type of review assessment for vernal pool breeding habitat.
We definitely would be looking for vernal pool breeding habitat. No super.
It was asked for.
I beg your pardon?
I'm suggesting that we offer a continuation until our March meeting, at which time the new plan will be taken into consideration, and it will also have considered all of Art's comments, and then we can better assess exactly what kinds of things we want them to look at and what kinds of evaluation for the potential vernal pools they might be on the site. Rather than do the discussion tonight.
Well, if you want to move it along and not have any further discussion tonight, that's no problem. All right, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, there's a definite protocol that we have for assessing a vernal pool. Becky, why wouldn't that just be what they would follow?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I mean, there is a standard protocol for assessing vernal pools, why wouldn't that be followed? Is there something additional that we would need? I mean, in the past, we've told people this is what you have to follow, and they essentially kick something to us that says, yes, this is what we're going to follow, and this is what we're going to do. I might be missing something here.
You as the commission don't have a set protocol for assessing vernal pools. I mean, there's guidelines on how to certify a vernal pool through natural heritage, but I think if you wanted, if you had specific requirements, okay, that surveys will occur from, such and such a date in March until through May, or, the surveyors are going to go out during rain events where there might be migration to look for coursing, going out and if you're going to require, dip netting for adults or funnel traps, or you're talking about just looking at egg masses. I think those type of things would have to be worked out on what level of effort would be applied on the site. I think that would be important that, that's done. So that way, if it's, June and they come back and say, well, we dip netted once and we did, a visual survey for egg masses and we didn't see anything, I wouldn't want that at that point, for you to say that wouldn't be sufficient to meet your criteria. So kind of getting an outline from them on how they plan to, do that work, because there's more things than just maybe going out and looking for egg masses that they could do. Having that outlined in advance would be beneficial. And I don't know if Art, if you have anything as the peer reviewer you might want to add on that.
No, I agree, and I would also, just add that LEC Environmental has folks on staff that are very well versed in the, in the process and skilled at vernal pool identification. So I would be confident that they could certainly provide, an adequate protocol and evaluation with their staff, and I would be glad to, to review that when it comes in.
So is it as simple as that? LEC, I see Andrea's on the meeting. Is that something that you can provide to us ahead of the next meeting? Is that whatever the protocol would be? Is that sufficient for what you're asking for, Rebecca?
I would think so.
Is that reasonable, Andrea?
Yeah, that's something that we can do. We have our wildlife scientist, Brian Madden, who kind of oversees all of those activities. And so we can put something together and coordinate with Rebecca and Art to have that reviewed.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you. I guess one thing I just want to add for your consideration is the off-site potential vernal pool. It's something that we could reach out to the property owner on, but we don't enter private property without prior access authorization. We can't trespass to do that work. So that's something that the commission needs to realize. If it does come to pass, I guess we'll have to make some assumptions for that and coordinate further with the commission.
Well, you don't have to make any assumptions. We will. That will be. You will be approved to go on the site.
From the commission, or
we can't approve to let them go on somebody else's property.
No, but we can get approval for them.
Okay.
We wouldn't send somebody on a site that we don't have approval to do.
Right. Okay.
For them to be on.
Okay.
So Ed, would you like me on your behalf to request permission? Is that what you were saying?
Right.
That they would help them? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this
we
is
also
Steven.
have.
Sorry, Becky. Could I just? I don't want to lose sight of Art's comment about that crossing, the wetland crossing that's dividing those two wetlands. So we need to figure out what we're going to do with that.
I think we should, that was what I was in my mind, Stephen, when I was saying that, Art could take us on a tour of the site.
Okay.
We could take a look at that. I mean, we can't look at it in the snow right now.
Right. Okay.
But
And I
agree
can
with you.
coordinate with our next site visit schedule if weather is permitting to go out and take a look at that too.
That's probably going to be a little early, isn't it? Next site visit schedule.
February 23rd. Well, right, we can see February 23rd.
Yeah, that'll be
next
a little early.
I can slightly touch on that. I know some test pits were done on the property for some ledge in the past year. That's probably what that's from. But due to that comment, we will be planning on proposing to remove that crossing in our revised plan set and restoring that area.
Great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice.
Sounds good. Continuation?
Ed,
Jeff, we
does
got
anyone have
anybody?
any questions? Oh, so we do have John Shevlin on. I know the plans are going to change, but we do have him here. He did provide the peer review on stormwater. Does anyone have any questions thus far on his review of the stormwater?
I don't know. Not unless you did them on the ones we're going to get before that. All right?
I'm sorry, so
Thank you.
Yep.
Continuation. All right, Peter?
So Ed, are you indicating that you want John to, once the plans are redone, to then reevaluate that again? Is that what you were indicating?
That he would. Yes, definitely.
All right, John, are you prepared for that? Okay with that?
That's exactly what we're doing. Based on the planning board meeting last week and some of the changes, we'll revisit what was what the new design will be.
It was in the notes.
Oh, okay. All right. Awesome. All right. Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Do we need public comments too before we get the continuation?
Yeah. Yep, do. Jeff, one more time.
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 30 Main Street, 20 Fisk Hill Road application? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 30 Main Street, 20 Fisk Hill Road application? There's no public comment, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yep. Having no public comment, Peter would like continuation to March 2nd? Or further,
Okay.
what? All right, good. Becky? All right, all in favor of a continuation, starting with Eric.
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Stephen Chidester?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle?
David Barnacle in favor.
Steve Halterman?
Steve Halderman in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right now.
Yeah.
We are now to forest cutting plan.
Yep.
Off Shattuck Road, 128 Route 84. The owner is James Piaffi. Preparer is Mike Bartlett and Austin Barrows. Request recommend approval to the Board of BOS. All right. I see Mr. Bartlett is here. Did I say Barry? I apologize if I did. Bartlett.
No, that's fine. Can you hear me?
Oh, sorry. Let me turn that up.
Turn it up a little bit.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, can we hear you now?
Okay. Okay. And do you have questions? I'm not sure. I've never presented, I guess, to your commission before, so I'm just not sure exactly what you're looking for.
Oh, Mike, do you want to just go over the plan, and actually you can go over the revisions to the plan that was submitted to DCR?
Okay. Alrighty, sure. The plan is to do a seed tree harvest on the bulk of the property. At the concern of the commission, I guess, there was a revision of the plan. The landowner has, expressed an interest in doing the harvest while we're there. We have excluded 1 acre on the area on the plan. The landowner said that someday he may apply for a gravel permit. This is not part of the cutting plan, was never intended to be part of a gravel permit. That was a comment that he made to someone that he may take some gravel out, be interested in taking gravel out of there someday. So what we're proposing is a forest harvest as part of, his interest in managing the property.
Now, is the colored spot in the middle, is that the 1 acre? Or is the hatched spot the 1 acre?
The hatched spot is...
This hatched spot. Yeah.
Hatched spot is 1 acre. Is that an existing gravel pit?
Part of it has had gravel removed at one time.
Now, where you are at Hammett Brook, where there is no crossing today, where there's a stream going through and there's a pipe in the middle of it, but it doesn't. There's river on either side of it.
That's not Hammett Brook. That's a small stream that feeds into Hammett Brook. Pardon?
Okay, so yeah, all right. All right. If it doesn't have a name, it's a headwater. So it's the headwaters of Hammett.
Well, yeah, Hammett Brook. The bulk of Hammett Brook comes from the old landfill area. This is a very small stream that, I'd say prior to Thanksgiving had no water in it at all.
Okay.
I guess I'll just add some additional information about the plan for the other members who aren't familiar with it. So this property is just south of the Sajak property, which is currently being forested. We did review that plan last year, and work is underway. So if you remember, there are multiple stream crossings on that property, one being for Hammett Brook. There's a total of 4. 3 are existing, and 1 is a field crossing, which is shown on this plan as SD1. So for this plan, they're proposing to put a temporary bridge over this crossing, which is what was approved for the adjacent property in order to come in and harvest. We do have 2 what appear to be isolated wetlands that one is identified as a potential vernal pool, one being here, and another one in this area down here. The woods road coming in is, an older woods road, kind of overgrown, that is visible throughout the majority of the site. As he mentioned, this is correct me if I'm wrong, but like a larger cut with the idea that the regeneration would be from seed from existing trees on there. Mr. Bartlett was proposing 50-foot buffers around these potential vernal pools, not required by DCR, but added on there as a protective measure. And in the recent correspondence, when this plan came in, the revised one, the southern boundary here on, I don't know if you can see my cursor here, on this potential vernal pool, he did increase that to a 100-foot buffer. In addition, what else was I going to say? DCR, we did provide part of the process for DCR is, they asked the commissions about any information we did share with DCR that there was a mention of a use of this property as a gravel pit previously, and did share that with them, and that's what led to the revised plan here. DCR did send today a copy of the approved plan for the property with that revision. Mike, the only thing I would note is that the filter strips weren't on here. I mean, I know you had it on the previous one, and then in the email you put the revised 100-foot. I just wanted to confirm that both filter strips will still be on those pools.
Oh, yes. Yes, they have been flagged, and the trees have been double marked around them, the filter strip, so to speak. Yes.
Okay. So the comments that the DCR forester had was usual. Please notify DCR service forester at start of harvest. The excluded area needs to be field delineated and inspected by the service forester prior to the harvest operation. Mike did indicate that he's already marked that out there in the correspondence I received, and that skid roads and crossing locations are existing, and to utilize water bars according to the BMP manual. So those are the conditions that DCR has added onto the plan. And I mean, as you're aware, the gravel pit area was excluded because these forest cutting plans don't allow for a conversion of use. And that is because forest cutting plans, you know, you're allowed to do a lot more than you would if, say, you had come in with a development property. You're not looking at, you know, the strict standards that are in the Wetlands Protection Act. So that's why the comment was provided and that area was marked on here.
Anybody have any questions? I have one. Within this 25 acres, will you be removing the logs with skidders, or would you be bringing in and having a new landing area on the 25 acres?
No, we would have to delineate that on the cutting plan if we were. The plan did, well, a note to the, I guess, to Becky and to the service forester was that we would use, it doesn't make sense to make a new landing on this property. We would skid the material to the existing landing on the Sweejack property and use that yarding area. And by doing so, we would not have to improve the road to the point to be able to bring trucks onto this 25 acres.
Okay. That's good to hear. I hate to see them improve the way you've improved them.
Well, to get a tractor trailer in the landing, you need to have it a tractor trailer road. It's a little different than driving a Subaru on a woods road.
Absolutely. Anybody else?
Questions? There's no stump removal taking place, is there, Mike?
Not associated with this project.
And are you butt marking all of the trees that are being cut?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch all of that.
Are you butt marking all of the trees that are being cut?
No, in this case, the trees to be retained are marked and have been butt marked. So it's a seed tree harvest, so it's a fairly heavy harvest. The trees that are going to be retained are the ones that have been marked. The others would be removed.
It's too bad because DCR and David Barnacle disagree on that particular topic. If you don't butt mark it, there's no way of being identified whether some of the ones that were butt marked are cut down. And that's supposed to be the control for the landowner. The landowner is supposed to be able to go in and know that only trees that were butt marked are the ones that were cut down. And this way, there is no protection for the landowner, but DCR agrees, so.
Well, the trees to be retained have been butt marked. So if you find paint, then it was a tree that shouldn't have been cut. If they find a stump that has paint, then it was a tree that shouldn't have been cut. But no, it's a case of efficiency of operation, I guess, instead of, it's a lot different than a thinning type of treatment, so to speak.
Understood.
Any further questions? Mr. Haldeman?
I just make a comment, if I may. I was pretty amazed by that road. Somebody went in there and went a little nuts with a bulldozer and a chainsaw. But that's why the discussion about that road being used for gravel removal was you didn't help us to think that not to consider the change of use when we saw that road. I wish we had pictures of before and after. It was pretty amazing. Enough said.
Well, we are in a process. It's a kind of a work in process. It's certainly a long ways from being done, so to speak, the project. I understand the road does look different, but as I said, it's a little different getting log trucks, whether it's a triaxle or a tractor trailer into a landing. I think in this case, in looking at what needed to be done for that forest based on the condition of its health was the best treatment in my mind as a professional forester. Significant mortality in the hemlock and oaks that are out there. If a conventional harvest was done where that slash was left, it would have been a tremendous amount of slash left in the woods on the floor, which, there's pluses and minuses in both cases there. In this case, it's being removed. It's going to the Plainfield Power Plant in Connecticut. It's producing renewable electricity. In my mind, and we're creating a great seed bed there for the regeneration of the forest. I expect that we will see very successful white pine regeneration. We had a tremendous seed crop in white pine. Timing couldn't be better. Type of operation to have good white pine seedling establishment. You need disturbance to the duff layer, and with the skidding and removal, we're doing that. I think, in my mind, the job's going very well, and it's what needed to be done on the site. The landing area, it happens to be the same exact spot that the previous owner had a sawmill set up there, sawing logs into lumber in the 1960s. So it will revert back to forest and look very nice down the road.
Well, I'm all for, I think that was a great forest cutting plan, and we talked about that and the seed renewal and all that, and the use of the trees. I'm all for that. My only comment was that road seemed excessive, but enough said.
Mr. Chairman, if we have no other comments, I'd like to make a motion.
Go for it. Well, do we want to see if the audience has any comment?
No, there's not a public hearing.
All right, go ahead.
I move that we approve of the forest cutting plan to be sent to the Board of Selectmen with their normal caveats applied.
Do I have a second?
Steve?
Yeah, I'll second that. Steve Alderman. What is it, my turn?
I was looking for your approval.
I like the
Any
forest
discussion?
cutting plan.
All right, good.
Any discussion? All in favor? David?
David Barnacle in favor.
Steve?
Steve Alderman in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Stephen Chidester?
Stephen Chidester in favor.
And Ed Goodwin opposed. All right, thank you. What's next, Becky?
9 Holland Road. We have a continued discussion related to the enforcement order for DEP file 300-959, and I believe Glenn is still on. Still there, Glenn?
My God, is he?
Yes, thank you.
Glenn?
Thank you.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Yes, the last time we discussed this, I'm sorry, let me shut this other phone off. I was upstairs. Thank you. The last time we discussed the project, the commission was not in favor of, or at least members, no, I'm not sure if there was a full vote, of the exotic invasive plant removal. And we did state that we would come back with a sapling count along the account. There was a question by Mr. Goodwin as to the numbers, and I believe I said 20 to 25. And we have on the plan 23 sapling locations, see note number 1 on the submitted plan. It was for red maple. And these are 2.5-inch caliper, 2 to 2.5, a couple of $100 a piece. We did locate them. 6 red maples, 6 sugar maples, 6 northern red oaks, 5 white oak, and spacing is 12 feet on center at the top of the slope at 25 feet from the BVW. No excess soil will remain at each planting location. And also EBT will oversee the installation of the saplings and submit a second growing season monitoring report, which was also asked for. I believe that there was some mortality question or statement by one of the members, and so we have it in here that we'll be looking at them. When I'm talking about excess soil, we'll use a mini excavator because these have a fair-sized root ball. The hole will be dug. Organic material, rich organic material, will be placed under and around as per planting specs so that we have a good medium. We'll have to also watch for watering, depending on the season. We don't, in case we get droughty during the summer, but we would want to move this thing along if it was approved in springtime, take advantage of some of that wetter season. And again, I kept them within the 25 feet because, as you know, the peer reviewer and the commission eventually, I'm not sure if I received it, but I believe we've agreed that this is a historic mill complex, and we're following clearly under your bylaw, 25-foot no disturbance, 50-foot no structure, and that's why we kept them within 25. They start at the McConnell property, and they extend to where the cart road would get narrow behind the building where the fire department said, I need fire access behind this structure. We felt that that was wide enough in that area, and there would be no question about needing to keep the limbs cut back because we're next to the building, which was part of the reason why the fire department initially had a comment, was it's tight behind the building up against the cart path. And when I say up behind the building, that would be the eastern side of the building, or southeastern side. So that's the plan. I'm waiting. Let's see. Sketch of sapling locations by EBT Inc. That's the only other red note on this plan. We did call Burton Engineering, didn't get any calls back, but we felt that this was a sketch on an existing plan, the ANRAD plan, and hopefully it would suffice for the commission. Thank you.
Becky?
So I did review the plan. You know, I'm not going to go over what Glenn already said, but he's got, you know, the large saplings, so they're not, you know, too small, I guess. So I think that's a decent sized tree to be requesting to be planted. There's 23 of them. You know, I would recommend approval. I think that the other areas near the existing building, as you said, you know, there was some requests from the fire department to keep that area open. We do have some pine trees down there too. It seems like this area of the property would most benefit from some additional planting. With that, the one thing is that he's offering a second growing season monitoring report. it might be advisable to get a monitoring report after the first growing season, just so that way we can address any mortality at that time instead of waiting 2 years down the road to do that. And I just also recommend that you ask for a date to have this implemented by, and I think it would be reasonable to request like June 1st to have the trees planted in there. And as Glenn mentioned, someone's going to need to keep up with them and water them, make sure that there's a plan for that in place.
All right. Anything, comments from the commission?
Well, I'll
Mr. Chair,
just
this is
say.
Stephen Fittis. I'd like to
Go ahead,
make a
Stephen.
Yeah, I just wanted to correct the record here. I don't believe anyone on the commission was against the invasive species removal. The comments that were made were that myself in particular was not happy with the amount of trees that were being restored based on what was cut on the property. I never suggested that the exotic species should not be removed. It seems like basically you withdrew the offer to do that in lieu of planting extra trees. So I just want to clear the record on that. I believe everyone would agree that the exotic species removal is beneficial. Thank you.
Well said, Stephen. That's all I was going to say. Thank you.
If I, after the board speaks, if I could speak.
Yeah, after let's go through the board.
Yes, sir.
David?
Make a motion to approve.
No? What?
I was going to make a motion to approve.
Oh, okay. Steve Haldeman?
Yeah, I agree with the comment about the number of trees planted, and there definitely was a withdrawal of the proposal to remove the exotic species, because I brought that issue up a couple of times, that there was a removal on the table and then it was withdrawn, and supposedly more trees were then going to be planted, and I think we're at a very minimum number of trees that should be planted in there based on what was coming. Essentially what Stephen said, I agree.
All right. Go ahead, Glenn. You wanted to retort?
Yeah. Oh, well, not to belabor on this one point, but it was stated that someone stated that they thought that we were only removing exotics for the benefit of the client, and I made a point that this was not being done for the benefit of the client, and that's all. And we will. I can say this, that because we're going to be there with a mini. When I'm coming, it's sort of like for me, for exotic invasives, if you know how much I work on those, from core and framing and Natick and all right up to McCullum Highway on Chelsea River. I couldn't stop myself from removing them if I was there planting the saplings. So whatever comes across me, multiflora rose or Tartarian or Oriental, they'll be popped as I'm working along that area. I don't think my mind would let me just leave them there. So let me say a point that I'll be removing as I go along with planting,
okay.
And I will be the overseer.
All right, Jeff, you want to see if there's anybody that would, from the audience, would like to speak?
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to 9 Holland Road? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to 9 Holland Road? There's no one on the line.
Thanks, Jeff.
Mr. Chairman,
David, you want to make that motion?
And my motion is that for DEP file number 300-0959, 9 Holland Road,
You'd like to close the public hearing?
Not a public hearing.
This is an enforcement order. It's not a public hearing.
Okay. All right. You're right. Sorry. Yep. Thank you. Go ahead.
As I was saying, I would like to agree with the planting as indicated by Mr. Kowalski, including the fact that he would love to be able to pull out by their roots invasive species.
That's correct.
Do I have a second?
Eric Gaspar, second.
I wanted Stephen Janessa to second that one.
Discussion? Any discussion?
No.
Seeing none, all in favor? Steve Halterman?
Oh, boy. Not real happy with it, but something is better than nothing. So, yeah, I have to reluctantly.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Stephen Chidester?
I'm opposed. Stephen Chittister.
Opposed. David Barnacle?
David Barnacle in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor. It passes 4-1. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Commission, and I will send a brief letter tomorrow stating that I will do that first year report also in case, because it's not in order, it won't come out in order. We'll just revise the plan for 2 years.
All right, great.
Thank you. You have a good
Becky,
day. I appreciate your time.
Yep, take care. So we don't have to do lead mine again, do we?
Nope.
Just checking.
Lead mine again. I'm closing the computer.
Oh my God. Any administrative updates? CPA meeting is on the 8th, so we haven't had one since our last. So, David, how's the Trails Committee doing?
Trails Committee next week. I only bring people's attention to the fact that if they look at Facebook, they would see information regarding the ice sculpture contest taking place next week, where everybody in the town.
Yeah, that sounds like a great thing for the kids. Get them outdoors. Get them using a chainsaw.
I love Steve's eyes.
Yeah. I'm pushing my kids to bring the kids home.
Oh my God. Open Space just report. I can report the Open Space just wrote their annual report. Lake Advisory. Nothing going on there.
We're actually going to have a meeting. What, in April, Becky? I think so.
April. Yep.
Yeah. So I might have something to report in 2 months.
Good. Agents report. Anything, Beck?
Just a few things quickly. First, I just want to share with you the hike and speak that Erin's taken the lead on with the rec department. So this is going to start, the week of school vacation for kids. We'll have this up on the website prior to that, probably tomorrow, and have it available. So encouraging youth to get out and find certain targets out on the properties. One, for instance, is on Hines, the Stafford Turnpike sign, and then learning about what the Stafford Turnpike is, et cetera. Find the beaver dam, find overturned, uprooted trees, some general things, and then learning what their value is, and then some of the specific things on our property too, like the interpretive signs we have down at Lead Mine for the stream restoration with some of the history of Camper Robinson Crusoe. So we're excited about that. Erin's done a great job, and really looking forward to kind of encouraging youth to get out there, kind of learn about the valuable resources we have out there and why we have them too. So that's one thing. Just quickly, I gave you a quick update about the Grand Trunk Trail at our last meeting. We're still working on that project. The Conservation Commission owns one of the properties that, or has the care and custody of one of the properties that the trail will be going on. We're working with the adjacent property owner. There's an existing easement that we need to work to revise with them for the trail. So I've been working on that, and hopefully in the future here I'll have something to bring to you presenting that. So Tom Chamberlain and I, with Jeff Bridges, have been working on that project. The Hobbs Brook retaining wall, that project is underway. I'll be going out tomorrow to take a look at the completed wall. The restoration, however, has to wait till spring, so that'll happen in the spring. GSI is done and they're getting ready to leave. So before they do, they ask that we go out and take a look at it. So I'm glad that they were able to complete that, and we'll have to work with them and their landscaper in the spring to get that implemented as well. Just to let you know, I had followed up with Mass DOT and our Cedar Lake project. They did email me today with an update. We should be seeing plans hopefully in the near future to some revisions they're going to make on that swale. I don't have a date on that, but hopefully soon. But definitely before our next meeting, I want the commission to take a look at those before, the contractor's going to start work in March to make sure that that gets done. The outbuilding project, we just awarded the project to a contractor. The Board of Selectmen voted on that last night. We're hoping that project will get started late winter, early spring. We do have on one of the properties a timing restriction related to a rare turtle out there, so we're trying to work outside of their active season so that way we don't have to do turtle sweeps. So still moving forward on that. Other thing, last update, I've been following up with the consultant for the Pine Lake project, which we have the enforcement order. They should have something to us soon to present to you from our December meeting. If you remember, in December we had a meeting and we went over some bulleted items that the commission was still looking for. They've been working on a response, and we're still waiting on a response for that. I'm hoping that we have something in advance here for the next meeting that you can look at, and we can have a discussion on that. So that way, if there's anything that the commission is looking for, they can get something implemented prior to their, active camping season out there. And I think that's about it.
Great. Mr. Chidester.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Eric
All in favor? Wave your hand.
All right.
David,
Thanks, Jeff.
your
Thanks,
hand.
Becky.
Night.
See you guys in a few weeks.
Thanks, Becky. Good job.
Oh, I will
Night,
not
Jeff.
be in town on the 23rd, so I will not be at the site visits on the 23rd.
Okay.